Chapter 668, Massive Battle. Chapter 668, Massive Battle. Kill. Su Zimo roared and gripped Bloodquencher with both hands. His blood chi surged as he descended from the skies, slashing down towards the colorful robed man. A blood beam extended 100 feet and burst forth. The force of that slash was extremely strong, with a furious killing intent that threatened to rip the voids apart. The expression of the colorful robed man changed slightly. He could sense that if he were to take the slash head-on, he would definitely suffer a huge loss given the amount of power it contained. Tapping lightly off his heel, the colorful robed man dodged to the side nimbly. The blood beam descended heavily onto the war chariot. With a boom, that terrifying power split the war chariot into pieces. A set of green robes fluttered. Before the war chariot was smashed, Su Zimo had already reached out to rescue the woman. Bloodquencher danced around the woman, and a blood beam flashed. Although Bloodquencher was huge, it was fluid as water in the hands of Su Zimo. It sliced off all the spider silk on the woman without injuring her at all. Su Zimo gripped the woman by the wrist and circulated his inner core, sending a rich demonic chi into the latter's body. Before long, he located the seals within her body. Demonic chi surged forward like a tide. Bang, bang, bang. The woman shuddered briefly, and her seals were removed, reverting her to her true form. There was a red patch on her crown as she spread her wings and screeched. It was indeed the little immortal crane from Ethereal Peak. Little Crane was a little different from ordinary immortal cranes. Ordinary immortal cranes had snow-white bodies, but Little Crane's body had a tinge of jade green to it. It was extremely easy to differentiate them. Su Zimo could clearly sense that the blood chi within Little Crane had deteriorated to a severe extent. Although she could revert to her true form, she had no combat strength. Protect her. I'll go kill those spiders. Su Zimo ordered murderously with a cold gaze. Monkey, the spirit tiger and golden lion huddled in swiftly and protected the little crane and fox within their midst in a circle. With that, they clashed intensely against the incoming beast stampede. Click, clack, click. Dust and gravel flew from the ground. A giant scarlet centipede that was dozens of feet long surged forward. Its 100 legs were sharp as daggers, causing sparks to fly as it crawled on the ground. Emanating a thick, demonic chi, it exuded a stench that was nauseating. The moment the giant centipede lunged forward, the spirit tiger leaped with an opened mouth. Reaching out with its claws, it grabbed the centipede by the body and chomped down fiercely on the latter's neck. Snap! The formidable bite strength of the spirit tiger snapped the giant centipede's neck instantly. The poisonous demonic chi that it released was instantly purged away by the power of thunder that was flashing on the spirit tiger's body. Roar! The golden lion's blood chi surged as it let out a deafening roar to the front. The sound wave rumbled and a ripple surfaced. A gray wolf that just rushed forward bled from all 7 orifices instantly. Its brain was crushed into sludge by the roar and it died on the spot. Among beasts, a lion's roar possessed the strongest roar power and was tough and invincible. In fact, demons and fiends could be purged by its roar. In the ancient era, mighty figures of the Buddhist sect comprehended a sound secret technique after fighting against the lion race. It was the lion roar technique of the modern Buddhist sections. Another few ancient remnant beasts were stunned for a moment. Before they snapped out of their stupor, the golden lion had already pounced forward and bit them to death. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A ground dragon 100 feet long with a body the width of a bucket shook its head and swept its tail. With a ferocious glare, it charged towards Monkey. Resembling lizards, ground dragons were not dragons and belonged to a branch of the crocodile race. They merely had a trickle of bloodline from the dragon race. They had massive strength and scales all over their bodies that made them invulnerable. It was difficult to break through a ground dragon's defense, even with a perfect spirit weapon. The weak spot of a ground dragon was their abdomen. That was the only part of their body that was not covered with scales. However, ground dragons were smart. Even after forming their inner cores, they They rarely traveled through the air and would stick closely to the ground most of the time, so that their opponents would not get any chance at all. Dust billowed as the ground dragon charged with its bared mouth that was lined with sharp fangs, biting towards Monkey's calf. If that bite landed, Monkey's calf would have been snapped instantly. At the same time, a heaven-devouring mastiff seized the opportunity to lunge over from the side. With a ferocious stance, it leaped and aimed to bite Monkey's throat. Monkey's eyes were filled with rage as it raised its leg the moment the ground dragon bit on them. Crack! The ground dragon missed. At the same time, Monkey smashed down heavily with its raised leg. Boom! Its massive feet crashed heavily onto the ground dragon's head, sending forth a terrifying amount of strength. Sinking into the mud, the ground dragon's head was smashed by Monkey. On the other side, Monkey reached out and grabbed the heaven-devouring mastiff by its jaws. Ugh! Monkey's eyes shone brightly scarlet, and instantly, both its arms grew with intertwining muscles that resembled a tough, firm trunk of an ancient tree. Die! Roaring, Monkey exerted strength in both arms and yanked the jaws of the heaven-devouring mastiff in opposite directions. Shing! A blood mist spewed out. Organs splattered everywhere with a blood stench. The heaven-devouring mastiff was torn into two alive by Monkey. Monkey's body was dyed red with blood as it tossed the torn carcass of the heaven-devouring mastiff to the ground casually. With a torrential ferocity, it whirled its arms and punched another incoming ferocious beast. Although the little fox was protected in the middle by Monkey and the others, she was not idle. An ancient, gigantic elephant charged over with a massive body that resembled a mountain. With a frightening might, it swung its massive trunk wildly as though it could knock out all the stars up in the skies. The power of a gigantic elephant was extremely scary and was even comparable to the dragon race. This was also the origin of the power of a dragon elephant. The triangular formation of Monkey, the spirit tiger, and the golden lion would most likely be knocked apart instantly if the ancient gigantic elephant charged over. The little fox glared into the eyes of the ancient gigantic elephant, and a demonic glint shone in her beautiful eyes. The speed of the ancient gigantic elephant slowed down gradually, and its consciousness turned hazy. Opening her mouth slightly, the little fox breathed out a fog of fragrance. Instantly, the eyes of the ancient gigantic elephant turned dazed after it breathed in the fragrance. Go, stop them. The voice of the little fox sounded. As though it had lost its soul, the ancient gigantic elephant obeyed the little fox and reversed into the beast stampede, swinging its thick trunk to kill wildly. The elephant trunk was like an ancient divine whip, and any living being struck by it had their bones and tendons snapped instantly. The gargantuan body crushed everything in its path, and some demon beasts that did not manage to dodge in time were struck so badly they were severely injured and coughed blood. Chaos started to spread out within the beast stampede. However, the chaos could not be compared to the ferocious beast stampede, merely dissipating instantly like ripples in a river. Although the ancient gigantic elephant was immensely powerful, it could not withstand the force of the beast stampede. In the blink of an eye, it was drowned by the endless beast stampede, leaving behind nothing but a carcass. The situation was not optimistic for Monkey, the spirit tiger, and golden lion as well. Individually, each of them had torrential combat strength, and within this short period of time, there were already hundreds of demon beasts' carcasses beneath their feet. However, the beast stampede was endless and charged relentlessly. Injuries started appearing on their bodies one after another inevitably, and fresh blood seeped. They had no way of retreat for this battle. Su Zimo had already held back all the clansmen from the rainbow wolf spider race. However, the triangular formation of Monkey and the other two would have been broken through a long time ago if the rainbow wolf spiders were involved. On the other side, the battle was even more intense, with Su Zimo taking on the rainbow wolf spiders and the beast stampede single-handedly. Chapter 669, All-Encompassing Web. Chapter 669, All-Encompassing Web. A blood mist spread in midair, and it was extremely sharp. The two distinct Immortality and Fiend Saber techniques, see Calming and Azura Saber, functioned perfectly and smoothly in Su Zimo's hands without any sluggishness. Countercurrent, Raging Tides, Vortex and Ripple, Ghost Howl, Blood Flow, Hell, White Bones, Phantom and Corpse. Although Su Zimo was alone with his saber on the battlefield, in the eyes of the many rainbow wolf spiders, it was as though there was a raging tide that was crashing onto shore. At the side, the sound of ghosts wailing could be heard, and there were white bones beneath their feet. Phantoms appeared everywhere as corpses climbed out from blood pools like a grisly purgatory. This was force. At the level of force, a cultivator's mental state would be affected and various surreal and ridiculous illusions would appear before them. In the mortal realm, commoners would experience massive pressure and get all jittery when they meet the Emperor. In reality, it was because they were affected by the force of the Emperor. At that moment, there were already dozens of rainbow wolf spider carcasses on the ground. Against the shroud of the terrifying saber stance, all it took was a brief moment of distraction for the rainbow wolf spiders to be chopped up, leaving green, sticky blood oozing everywhere. The blood of rainbow wolf spiders was filled with toxic poison. When it splashed onto the ground, the surrounding flora withered in the blink of an eye. The initially moist mud started drying up and even showed signs of turning into gravel and sand. Some of the demon beasts that could not dodge in time were splattered by the blood of the rainbow wolf spiders. Within 10 breaths, they would collapse to the ground. The toxicity of the poison was rare in this world. Su Zimo's blood chi was fervent, like a blazing cauldron. The demonic chi and poison were evaporated into emptiness before they could even get close. The colorful robed man had already reverted to his true form. Compared to the other rainbow wolf spiders, he had the smallest frame. The moment he landed on the ground with his 8 legs, his movement technique was unusual, and he was extremely swift. He did not fight Su Zimo head-on at all. Kikiki. The colorful robed man let out a series of piercing sounds, as though it was commanding its clansmen at the side. Under his command, the surrounding rainbow wolf spiders created a formation rapidly at a shocking swift speed. They no longer fought Su Zimo head-on and chose to revolve around him rapidly instead. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As the rainbow wolf spiders darted around, rainbow silk shot out from their abdomens, coiling around Bloodquencher. Bloodquencher was extremely sharp and coupled with Su Zimo's burst power. It could destroy any supreme-grade spirit weapon with ease. However, the silk of the rainbow wolf spider was extremely tenacious. Even with the sharpness of the Bloodquencher, it could not easily sever the endless spider silk that was wrapping around it. Furthermore, the silk was poisonous to begin with, causing the light on Bloodquencher to dim down as its blood beam diminished rapidly. Su Zimo dominated the battlefield and was still undefeated. None of the rainbow wolf spiders could withstand his might. However, not long after, Bloodquencher was wrapped in endless spider silk. Each time he swung the saber, Su Zimo felt a great resistance as though he was in a swamp. A great part of the reason why most cultivators were not willing to provoke rainbow wolf spiders was because their silk was a spirit weapon that countered cultivators. The spider silk was extremely formidable. Thankfully, Bloodquencher was a connate spirit weapon. If it was an ordinary supreme-grade spirit weapon, it would have been destroyed a long time ago after being covered by the endless spider silk. The reason why Su Zimo did not release his illumination sword formation was also because he noticed that, although the sword formation was powerful, it was created using supreme-grade flying swords. As long as something happened to one of the flying swords, the entire sword formation would not be able to function normally. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages. In truth, for the past 20 years, Su Zimo had been pondering about how he could raise the grade of that set of flying swords once more. All he needed was for each flying sword to be slightly stronger. The combined increase in strength would be even more obvious with the 27 flying swords combined. If the illumination sword formation was created, its power would be even more terrifying. However, the battlefield was filled with changes, and there was no room for Su Zimo to ponder excessively. Although more than 100 rainbow wolf spiders have fallen and the number was still increasing, Bloodquencher was already trapped by an endless amount of spider silk. It was almost like a cocoon, and the blade could no longer be seen. Su Zimo had no choice but to let go. It wasn't because Bloodquencher was not sharp enough. Rather, the eternal truth of the world was that everything had a counter. Fufufu. The colorful robed man smiled smugly and said in a creepy manner, "Do you think that you're able to challenge the dignity of the rainbow wolf spider race just because you have a connate spirit weapon? I will make you pay for the deaths of my clansmen." Although Su Zimo lost Bloodquencher, there was still no fear in his expression as he stood in midair and sneered, "At the end of the day, you're all nothing but ugly bugs. It doesn't matter how many of you are killed. Haven't you noticed the situation you're in?" The colorful robed man reared his head in laughter. "You've already fallen into my rainbow web formation, and you're nothing but a trapped bird. There's no way you can escape." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless rainbow wolf spiders were still revolving in midair, spitting silk. Unknowingly, the rainbow wolf spiders had already weaved a gigantic spiderweb around Su Zimo. The dense silk weaved together and had no gaps between them. At the same time, the spiderweb was still getting thicker. It was isolating him from the outside world completely. There was no air or spirit chi here. He was completely sealed and was unable to utilize any energy from the outside world. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. Given his strength, he could rip off a single thread of silk without the use of any weapons. However, millions of threads weaved together endlessly formed an all-encompassing web that could not be broken free from. The more he struggled, the deeper he would sink within. "I can sense that your blood chi is extremely strong and rich with a robust life force essence." The rainbow wolf spider smiled menacingly. "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you directly. I will keep you and devour your blood bit by bit. Hee. I believe that your blood will definitely be delicious." Su Zimo's gaze turned cold as he said icily, "Drink my blood? You're not going to be alive to do that." "Reel in the web?" the colorful robed man shouted. Creak, creak. The massive spiderweb pulsated and started shrinking. Although the spiderweb looked bright and colorful, it was poisonous and filled with killing intent. Thick, scarlet demonic chi shrouded around Su Zimo. However, the demonic chi sizzled as the rainbow spiderweb enveloped him. Interesting. His eyes shimmered as he murmured. He had cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Although he was only at the core formation section, his demonic chi was enough to defend against most damage. To think that the web of these rainbow wolf spiders was able to corrode his demonic chi. A race that could reign over a demon region was nothing to be scoffed at. However, the same way the rainbow spiderweb countered Bloodquencher, there was always a counter to everything in this world. Chapter 670, Flames of the Soaring Serpent. Chapter 670, Flames of the Soaring Serpent. More rainbow wolf spiders started climbing up and spitting silk repeatedly, weaving layer over layer on that gigantic, colorful cocoon. There were also some rainbow wolf spiders that stood all around, moving their 8 legs to reel in the spiderweb. That gigantic cocoon was shrinking continuously. The remaining space Su Zimo had was decreasing. In the cocoon, Su Zimo was expressionless. His golden core appeared gradually from the black hole in his dantian and started circulating. A shuddering aura spread from within his body. It was bright and scorching. Crack, crack, crack. In that instant, the earth and mountains shook. Mountains toppled and the ground cracked, revealing an unsettling fissure. Bang, boom, boom. Volcano erupted as balls of scarlet lava surged from underground, forming a red sea that could even melt rocks. The heat within the cocoon rose rapidly. When the lava splashed onto the rainbow spiderweb, wisps of green smoke rose instantly. Although the spiderweb was burned and its light dimmed, it did not break. When he sensed what was happening inside, The colorful robed man's pupils constricted and his expression changed slightly. The silk of the rainbow wolf spider was indeed a counter to most spirit weapons. However, there was always a counter to everything, and the greatest nemesis to the silk was fire. Thankfully, the rainbow wolf spiders were royalty of the spider race and had powerful bloodlines. They cultivated unique cultivation techniques that made their silk exceptionally tenacious, such that it could defend against most fire. If it was any other spider, the cocoon would have been burned into ashes by the flames a long time ago. When he saw that the cocoon was merely charred without any lethal damage, the colorful robed man heaved a sigh of relief and sneered, "You want to burn the silk of rainbow wolf spiders using that level of flames? You must be dreaming." Although he said that, the colorful robed man was in cold sweat moments earlier. In the cultivation world, rainbow wolf spiders feared cultivators of a few supersections. For example, of the 6 Buddhist monasteries, monks of Dipankara Monastery cultivate a ball of true fire in their bodies at the start of their cultivation paths. It was extremely strong and illuminated their organs, igniting their spirits. If a rainbow wolf spider got into contact with the true fire of a Dipankara Monastery monk, it could be severely injured or even burned into ashes. Suddenly, the colorful robed man's expression changed. He could sense that the temperature in the cocoon was rising at a scary speed and was not at its limits yet. From a fissure in the ground, a menacing head stuck out with a frightening aura. It had the head of a snake, the body of an anaconda, and was scarlet red all over its body. Its scales were stacked on top of one another tightly with no gaps, burning with a thin layer of flames. Swoosh! The living being rose with a single leap, and a pair of scarlet wings, blazing with flames, burst forth from its back. With each flap, a heat wave would be sent forth. The eyes of the colorful robed man widened as he murmured, "Snake head, anaconda body, dragon scales, phoenix wings, no horns above its head or limbs beneath its abdomen. This is..." A memory that was embedded deep in its bloodline gradually came to mind. "Soaring Serpent," the colorful robed man exclaimed in shock. Deep in its soul, there was a fear that stemmed from the primordial era, causing it to shiver uncontrollably. The spirit fire was a divine being of the flames in the primordial era and was not inferior to phoenixes in reputation. However, that frightening living being had gone extinct a long time ago in the primordial era. It could be considered as the greatest nemesis for the rainbow wolf spiders. Or rather, in the primordial era, that golden era where the 10,000 races ruled, the rainbow wolf spider race was nothing in the eyes of the soaring serpents. The colorful robed man truly had not imagined that Su Zimo would be able to summon this primordial divine being. The temperature in the cocoon continued rising. Standing in the blazing flames, Su Zimo's hair danced. His aura was torrential as he stood in the scarlet lava with electric eyes. The figure of the primordial soaring serpent rose continuously behind him. It was an extremely shocking sight. Many rainbow wolf spiders stood rooted to the spot and did not escape immediately. When it sensed that it was being restricted, the soaring serpent twisted its head and surveyed the surroundings. Its cold eyes contained an endless ferocity and fury as it reared its head and hissed with its darting tongue. It was a divine being of the flames with a noble bloodline. In the primordial era, the rainbow wolf spiders were no different than ants to it. Now that thousands of years had passed and it was reborn, there was no way it was going to be insulted by such bugs. Pest! 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 The primordial soaring serpent flapped its blazing wings and fire spewed from its eyes as it opened its gigantic mouth to spit out streams of scorching red lava. The lava that came from the mouth of the primordial soaring serpent was much scarier than the lava flowing underground. Swoosh! The gigantic cocoon burst into flames instantly. Su Zimo tore into the air, rearing his head as he howled. The rainbow wolf spiders that were climbing on the cocoon were unable to escape at all, screeching terribly as they were engulfed in the sea of flames. Those flames were absolutely destructive for them. In the blink of an eye, the cocoon turned into ashes. The flames spread and blazed through the vast lands. A few hundred rainbow wolf spiders perished in the sea of flames without any corpses left. Even if any rainbow wolf spider escaped from the sea of flames, a single spark that landed on them was enough to burn them completely. That was the terror of the soaring serpent flames. Roar! Roar! The lava surged and extended underground thousands of kilometers. The entire beast stampede went into chaos, howling constantly as everyone escaped in fear of being burned by the scarlet lava. The soaring serpent was sentient and flew with the flames to hunt after the remaining rainbow wolf spiders. Zemo shifted his gaze and glared at the colorful robed man who was running. Instantly, he chased after the latter. The rainbow wolf spider was the culprit behind Little Crane's sufferings. Sticking close to the ground, the colorful robed man scurried extremely swiftly with his 8 limbs, fleeing into the distance with dust clouds in his wake. You're still trying to escape? Zemo narrowed his eyes. Splash! His blood chi exploded and spirit energy burst forth. Swoosh! At the same time, a pair of wings appeared behind Zemo, raising his speed to its limits. He vanished from the spot, bolting forward like an arrow. The colorful robed man did not dare to stop at all, scurrying for his life with all 8 limbs flaying. Thankfully, the rainbow wolf spiders were nimble and had swift movement techniques. Most demon beasts won't be able to catch up to them if they truly wanted to escape. Right then, a buzzing sound echoed in the colorful robed man's ears. It was as though something was closing in rapidly. The colorful robed man turned around. That single glance scared him out of his wits. The green-robed cultivator was not far behind him, looking murderous with a cold gaze. Furthermore, the distance between them was decreasing rapidly. If this continued, he would be caught within 10 breaths. Suddenly, the colorful robed man stopped in his tracks and his body shrank repeatedly, turning into a spider the size of a palm. Digging with 8 limbs, he burrowed himself into the ground and vanished. Chapter 671. I'll break your 8 legs. Chapter 671. I'll break your 8 legs. Zemo's gaze turned cold. Trying to burrow away? The rainbow wolf spiders naturally had means that were superior to others for them to be able to survive from the primordial era, or they would have gone extinct a long time ago as well. It was a demonic technique that was comparable to ground burrowing. By shrinking themselves, rainbow wolf spiders could enter the mud and travel through the cramped gaps underground at an extremely fast speed. In a short period of time, they could escape more than 100 feet away. The troublesome thing was that rainbow wolf spiders glided with their legs in the gaps in the mud and caused extremely small vibrations that were almost silent. It was extremely difficult for living beings on the surface to detect them. Furthermore, there were many tiny bugs in the mud. The sound released by those bugs crawling was enough to cover the tracks of the rainbow wolf spider completely. The only way to detect the rainbow wolf spider was for a nascent soul to arrive and release their spirit consciousness. Zemo stood on the spot motionlessly and suddenly closed his eyes. He seemed to have entered a trance, and the sound of bugs, ants, and wind around him was filtered completely. Universal hearing. Zemo's senses were way too sharp after cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Although he did not have an essence spirit, he could sense everything by opening up his 5 senses, and a clear image formed in his mind. 3 foot and 7 inches underground, there was a spider the size of a fingernail scurrying, and it was 280 feet away. Humph! Zemo opened his eyes, and a streak of lightning flashed through them. Swash! Zemo had already vanished from where he was. In the blink of an eye, he arrived above the rainbow wolf spider. Conjuring a hand seal, Zemo's fingertips shuttled with an unusual movement. Eventually, a gigantic palm was conjured and blanketed over the path that the rainbow wolf spider was escaping on. Ma! At the same time, Zemo opened his mouth and said a word in Sanskrit. The demon subduing seal was released together with the damning mantra. The rainbow wolf spider that was initially scurrying through the mud shuddered. Boom! A massive palm descended from above with an apocalyptic might that threatened to subdue everything in its way. The massive palm had yet to touch the ground. However, a gigantic handprint had already appeared in the ground, deeply embedded into the mud. The rainbow wolf spider was instantly exposed, and it could no longer hide. "Human, how are you trying to kill me?" The rainbow wolf spider shouted. "There's a demon emperor in the rainbow wolf spider race. Do you wish to die?" "Demon emperor?" Suzimo sneered. "Do you think someone of the demon emperor's level will stand out for a puny spirit demon like you? Furthermore, we're in the ancient battlefield. Here, I'm the emperor." The moment he said that, the world shook. Who would dare to say something like that? A torrential aura surged from Suzimo, and the power of the demon subduing seal intensified before crushing down. Scree! The rainbow wolf spider knew that it couldn't escape and screeched shrilly. The blood chi in its body surged rapidly, and it grew to the size of 100 feet in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! Whoosh! A series of rainbow silk threads shot out from its abdomen towards the palm in the sky. The poison in the silk was extremely domineering and instantly corroded the palm that was formed from the demon subduing seal with a sizzling sound. The palm's spirit light flickered and its power diminished. Exerting strength in all 8 legs, the rainbow wolf spider bounced and took the demon subduing seal in midair head-on. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The demon subduing seal dispersed. The rainbow wolf spider fell heavily to the ground, creating a huge dent. It was injured all over, and one of its legs was snapped, oozing with green blood that stank. "Not bad." Suzimo nodded. "You're rather capable to be able to take on my demon-subduing seal." The rainbow wolf spider struggled and crawled out of the pit, charging towards Suzimo with bloodshot eyes and a menacing expression. Its remaining 7 legs were like sharp spears that were laced with poison. There were even reverse spikes on the surface of the spider legs. If they thrust into the flesh, they would pull out a huge chunk of flesh upon extraction, leaving behind a bloody hole. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The rainbow wolf spider looked down from above and thrust its legs in a flurry towards Suzimo's head. Suzimo's gaze was cold and blood quencher that was in his hands buzzed. Clang, clang. Its blood beam expanded. Releasing a movement technique, Suzimo shuttled through the chaotic spear shadows and circulated his blood chi. Wielding blood quencher, he slashed viciously at the critical joints of the rainbow wolf spider's legs. Green, oily blood spewed out. 3 spider legs were sliced off by Suzimo. Apart from the spiderweb, another weapon for the rainbow wolf spiders was their legs that could go against perfect-grade spirit weapons. However, Suzimo's attacks were targeted at the joints of the legs where they were weakest. Coupled with the sharpness of blood quencher, a single slash severed 3 of the rainbow wolf spider's legs. Ah! The rainbow wolf spider let out a heart-wrenching scream. "Since you drank her blood, I'm going to break all 8 of your legs." There was no pity in Suzimo's cold eyes. He was indebted to the old immortal crane of Ethereal Peak, and Little Crane had accompanied him for a long time in his cave abode. Suzimo regarded Monkey, the spirit tiger, and Little Crane as his kin a long time ago. If he hadn't returned earlier on, Little Crane would have been doomed to eternal damnation if she was brought away by the rainbow wolf spider. At that time, he would be immensely remorseful as well. The thought of that gave Suzimo a sense of trepidation. Sure. The rainbow wolf spider had 4 legs remaining that were intact and could support its body. Break? Suddenly, it screamed and broke off 2 of its legs, turning them into long spears that shot towards Suzimo at an extremely fast speed. Puny tricks. Suzimo sneered and swung blood quencher in reverse, sweeping around gently like a ripple to send the 2 spider legs flying. The rainbow wolf spider was completely despondent. The killing moves that it used to dominate over the demon region were worthless in the face of this human. How could such a terrifying monster incarnate exist in the human race? Before that thought was finished, the rainbow wolf spider's eyes blurred with a flash of green robes. Before it could react, a sharp pain surged through its body and its remaining 2 legs were severed. Thump! Without any support, the rainbow wolf spider fell onto the ground. Due to the immense blood loss, its body shrank continuously and became the size of a human before long. Slumped in the mud, the rainbow wolf spider glared at Suzimo with a venomous gaze. Suzimo took out a rope from his storage bag and tossed it at the rainbow wolf spider's body. Instantly, it coiled itself around the ladder. After the battle at the ancient city, he had gathered tens of thousands of storage bags. There were way too many spirit weapons in his storage bag now, and he could casually pull out a supreme-grade spirit weapon at any moment. "I'll leave your life for little Crane." Suzimo dragged the rainbow wolf spider and sped back where he came from. Chapter 672, by Fang Bloodline. Chapter 672, by Fang Bloodline. The battlefield had gone silent, leaving behind nothing but charred land. The soaring serpent flew into the air, spraying lava wildly and incinerating everything within 500 kilometers. The rainbow wolf spiders were not the only ones suppressed by its aura as a divine being, but other demon beasts as well. Most of the rainbow wolf spiders were already burned to death. The remaining demon beasts broke free of the rainbow wolf spider's control and fled one after another. The retreat of the beast stampede left nothing but a pile of carcasses and bones on the ground, some of them torn and still fuming with smoke. Monkey, the spirit tiger, and golden lion were filled with injuries all over and panted heavily. "Thank you, Monkey and spirit tiger." Little Crane spoke in human tongue and rubbed against Monkey and the spirit tiger's cheeks with her long beak. "It's nothing." Monkey grinned and waved it off, pointing to the spirit tiger at the side. This perverted tiger was the first to notice that something was off and mumbled the entire journey. That was when we noticed what was amiss. The spirit tiger's heart was pounding furiously in happiness when it felt the little Crane's intimate act. However, at the mention of perverted tiger from Monkey, the spirit tiger's expression turned awkward and it coughed twice to divert little Crane's expression. Little Crane was a little confused. Monkey snickered. Both the golden lion and little fox knew the reason for that and grinned secretly. Patting itself on the chest, the spirit tiger said, "Although I've never seen you in your human form before, I recognized you right away when I saw your huge, beautiful eyes." "Imph, since when did you stare at her eyes?" "You were looking at her long legs the entire time." Monkey pouted and grumbled softly. Glaring at Monkey, the spirit tiger said hurriedly, "Don't listen to his nonsense, little Crane." The spirit tiger looked deeply at the little Crane to build up the mood, as though there was something it wanted to say. After a long time, just when the little Crane was starting to get creeped out, the spirit tiger yelled, "Ah!" The golden lion and little fox were caught unaware and jolted in shock, looking at the spirit tiger in confusion, unsure what it was up to. Monkey rolled its eyes. The spirit tiger continued, "Ah, your eyes are so beautiful and pretty, like the stars and the moon and the sun and the The golden lion frowned. The little fox went blank. Monkey was dumbfounded, as though it was struck by lightning. Was the spirit tiger making a poem? Notwithstanding how lousy the poem was, it was stuck halfway while composing it. Monkey reached out and wanted to send the spirit tiger flying with a slap. However, it truly could not muster up strength after the massive battle earlier on. Monkey could only sigh and turn away, hiding its face. It truly did not wish to look at the spirit tiger and looked down on the ladder from the depths of its heart. With an embarrassed expression, the spirit tiger scratched its head and was struck by inspiration, yelling, like a huge gemstone deep in the ocean. The spirit tiger shrugged its head smugly and smiled to itself foolishly. In its opinion, that final statement was the vital finishing touch to make everything perfect. Little Crane felt chills run down her spine and could not help but shudder. "What do you think, little Crane?" The spirit tiger closed in and licked its own face, asking. Glaring at the spirit tiger, little Crane asked coldly, "Are you in heat?" The little fox could not help but burst into laughter. Monkey and the golden lion snickered wildly at the side, beaming as well. The spirit tiger had not expected Little Crane to be so sharp and direct with her words. Unable to take it at all, its face flushed red and it was thoroughly embarrassed, wanting nothing more than to find a hole to bury itself. Right then, a person flew through the air from the distant skies. He dragged a long rope tied to a spider with 8 legs severed. It was the true form of the colorful robed man. Little Crane's eyes were filled with endless hatred and her body shivered in rage. "Are you guys all right?" Descending before everyone, Suzimo took out bottles of elixirs from his storage bag. No matter what was required, internal or external application, there was something. Right now, he was in no lack of such items. Monkey and the spirit tiger applied medicine silently while taking care of Little Crane. Charging right in front of the colorful robed man, Little Crane extended her feet and stomped on the man's body, questioning, "You said that you once saw a man that resembled me in the 1,000 Spider Sand Dune. Was that for real?" The colorful robed man was severely injured to begin with. Now that Little Crane stomped on him, his internal organs were shocked as he coughed out a mouthful of blood and panted. "Of course it's real." Little Crane asked hurriedly with an agitated expression, "Where is he?" "That by Fang was your father?" Now that he knew he was dead for the sure, the colorful robed man mocked gloatingly. "Unfortunately, you'll never see him ever again. He died a long time ago. Ha ha ha." Little Crane's body shuddered and her face turned frightfully pale. Suzimo furrowed his brows slightly. Bifangs were ferocious birds of the primordial era and were extremely fierce. With the ability to manipulate fire, they were one of the fiercest species of ferocious birds. However, the phoenix race was way too terrifying and reigned supreme over the ferocious birds while manipulating fire at the same time. As such, the Bifang was not as well known. However, in reality, the true strength of a Bifang was comparable to the divine being of the flames, Soaring Serpent. Early on, Suzimo had already noticed that Little Crane looked different from ordinary immortal cranes. Ordinary immortal cranes had vermilion crowns and snow-white bodies. However, Little Crane's body also had jade-green feathers that were extremely beautiful. Everything would make sense if she had the bloodline of Bifangs running in her. After all, Bifangs were jade-green in color. Suzimo lamented internally, "No wonder I've never seen Little Crane's father or heard the old immortal crane mention it. So, he died a long time ago." "I don't believe you." Little Crane shook her head repeatedly and glared at the colorful robed man, saying with a quivering voice, "Why, you are lying, am I right?" "Lying?" The colorful robed man laughed bitterly. "Your father had a death wish barging into the 1,000 Spider Sand Dune thinking that he was strong. The rainbow wolf spider sucked his blood dry a long time ago. We ate his flesh and drank his blood to cultivate. Ha!" Little Crane had a weakened blood chi to begin with. Upon receiving this blow, her vision darkened and her head spun. "Sister Little Crane." Little Fox rushed up to support Little Crane. Bang! Suddenly, a slap landed on the back of the colorful robed man's head, splitting it into pieces as brain juice flowed on the ground. Shrugging his palm, the spirit tiger grumbled, "Annoying! How dare you continue laughing when your laughter sounds so disgusting? I've had it with you." Suzimo heaved out a sigh of relief. He could tell that the spirit tiger did that because it did not want Little Crane to get agitated further. In truth, he was about to attack even if the spirit tiger did not do it. It was clear that the colorful robed man meant to trigger Little Crane as much as it could, seeing that it wasn't going to survive. Suzimo patted Little Crane gently on the shoulder and consoled her. "Don't think too much." This spider was clearly spouting nonsense upon knowing that it was about to die. "Things might not be as you're imagining it to be." Little Crane nodded, but the sorrow and misery in her eyes could not be concealed. Chapter 673, Nian Chi's Location. Chapter 673, Nian Chi's Location. Sensing the sadness in Little Crane's heart, the spirit tiger scratched its ears and cheeks. It wanted to help her share the load, but did not know what to say. Nobody knew how to console her for something as such. The atmosphere turned heavy. Looking at Suzimo, the spirit tiger hoped that he would say something. After pondering for a moment, Suzimo decided to distract Little Crane. Little Crane, how did you enter the intermediate ancient battlefield? Although the old immortal crane had broken through 20 years ago into a high-level fiend demon that was equivalent to the Dharma characteristic realm of humans, it was probably impossible for her to open up a teleportation point to the intermediate ancient battlefield single-handedly. As though she called something, Little Crane's expression changed all of a sudden, and she turned into her human form. She grabbed Suzimo's arm and said anxiously, "Save Nian Qi. Think of a way to save Nian Qi." Suzimo's heart sank, and he took a deep breath. What happened? Calm down and speak slowly. Nian Qi was the small girl that he picked up in the capital of Great Zhou, and she contained many secrets in her body. For example, Nian Qi was already incredibly strong before she cultivated. Also, Nian Qi did not seem to age. Or rather, time seemed like it passed extremely slowly for her. This meant that Nian Qi's lifespan was much longer than anyone else of the same level. Even so, Suzimo had no doubts towards Nian Qi. Everyone had secrets. Furthermore, she was only a child and had a pure heart. Be it to him or Ethereal Peak, she carried no evil intentions. She fought with all her might for the battle at Ethereal Peak and almost died. It was clear that she had already regarded Ethereal Peak as her home. Little Crane replied, an old patriarch of the Great Zhou dynasty appeared, and took the initiative to look Mother up with the intention of opening a teleportation spot together. The patriarch was a Dharma characteristic, but his blood chi has deteriorated and his lifespan is about to end. That was why he decided to use a secret skill to burn up the last of his lifespan and release a burst together with Mother to open up a teleportation spot. However, the teleportation tunnel was extremely cramped, and only 2 people can be teleported. The Patriarch of Great Zhou gave both spots to Ethereal Peak. When he heard that, Suzimo raised his brow. That action was equivalent to sacrificing his life to give a great gift to Ethereal Peak. The Patriarch of Great Zhou must have a motive for doing that. Little Crane continued, the Patriarch of Great Zhou knew that his life was about to end, and was worried that a calamity would befall the Great Zhou dynasty after his demise. As such, he wanted to use this gift in exchange for the protection of Mother and Ethereal Peak. In the battle at Ethereal Peak, the other 4 major sects suffered immense losses, and their void reversions perished. Although Ethereal Peak suffered immense losses as well, its surviving disciples had great potential for the future. Furthermore, the old immortal crane managed to extend her life with that battle and advanced to the Dharma characteristic realm. She broke free of the restraints of heaven and earth and freed herself from the threat of her demise with an extension of her lifespan. With that, Ethereal Peak became the leader of the 5 major sects instantly. Its strength surpassed the other 4 major sects firmly, and there were more and more cultivators that wanted to join the sect. In the past 20 years, Ethereal Peak turned into the true number 1 sect of Great Zhou. It was not hard to understand why the Patriarch of Great Zhou made that decision. Little Crane looked at Suzimo and continued, Mother told me that part of the reason why the Emperor of Great Zhou left the throne to Ji Yaoxue was because of your potential. At the same time, it was also because of her relationship with you, as well as the fact that Ethereal Peak was backing you. Suzimo nodded. This was something he had guessed as well. According to customs, the throne was passed down to the sons in order of seniority. No matter what, Ji Yaoxue would not have inherited it. Furthermore, she was a female. Finally, despite the unrest and internal and external strife in Great Zhou for the past 20 years after the throne was passed down to Ji Yaoxue, she was not removed from position. That was definitely not a decision made by the Emperor of Great Zhou alone. So, the Patriarch of Great Zhou also backed the idea. With that, everything made sense. This Patriarch of Great Zhou had planned a long time ahead. Furthermore, he made the right gamble. The fact that the old immortal Crane sent little Crane here meant that they had agreed on the deal. Although he was dead, he paved the way for Great Zhou before his demise with the protection of an expert at Dharma characteristic realm. From there on, it was no longer up to his control how Great Zhou would grow in the future. A thought struck Su Zimo as he asked, "Old immortal Crane sent you and Nian Qi in here with those two spots?" "Yes." Little Crane nodded. "Many cultivators joined Ethereal Peak, and the strength of the sect has grown. However, there are issues as well. We no longer have enough elixirs, weapons, or cultivation techniques to supply them." Both Mother and the sect master looked highly forward to the opening of the ancient battlefield, hoping to use this opportunity to strengthen our sect's foundation. Although Nian Qi joined the sect pretty late, she is already the number one of the Golden Core realm in our sect right now. In fact, the sect master said that she might be comparable to you. Mother also mentioned that Nian Qi's Golden Core phenomenon has a chance of making it to the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. He was surprised enough at the fact that she might be able to make it to the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking. Sect Master Ling Yun was already at Void Reversion Realm, and both he and the old immortal Crane were wise and sharp. The fact that they gave Nian Qi such a high evaluation was proof of her strength. Of course, neither the old immortal Crane nor Sect Master Ling Yun knew of Su Zimo's true strength after he lay dormant for 20 years at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Nobody had witnessed it as well. As though she recalled something, little Crane's eyes were filled with fear. Not long after we entered the ancient battlefield, we came across a group of 7. There were 6 men and 1 woman. The 7 of them were extremely strong. Extremely strong. Little Crane emphasized continuously. It was clear how much of a blow it was for her. The group of them looked down on everything with a cold, arrogant indifference. However, something was off the moment they caught sight of Nian Qi. Nian Qi's expression turned terrible, as well the moment we saw them. At that time, we were holding hands and her palm went ice-cold right away, filled with sweat. Su Zimo and the others could not help but feel anxious at this point. Little Crane continued, "Thereafter, the 7 of them had odd expressions and walked towards us, looking at Nian Qi with fake smiles. Nian Qi told me not to ask about anything and just run before rushing to them." After pausing for a moment, Little Crane gulped. The moment Nian Qi rushed up, she released her Golden Core phenomenon. However, it was shattered by a single punch from the leader of the opposing group. "Ah!" Little Fox exclaimed. Narrowing his gaze, Su Zimo asked, "He destroyed Nian Qi's Golden Core phenomenon with a single punch?" "Yes." Little Fox nodded with conviction. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. According to the old immortal Crane, Nian Qi's Golden Core phenomenon had a chance of making it to the top 10 of the phenomenon ranking. In other words, her Golden Core phenomenon was definitely not weaker than his Soaring Serpent and Divine Turtle. However, such a terrifying Golden Core phenomenon was shattered by a single punch. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Even he might not be capable of releasing such a powerful burst. Suddenly, Su Zimo realized that the ancient battlefield this time round might be much scarier than he had imagined it to be. Chapter 674, Sworn Siblings. Chapter 674, Sworn Siblings. Nian Qi did not manage to last 3 moves against that person. At that time, I was scared out of my wits and my mind was filled with nothing but Nian Qi's voice asking me to escape. Little Crane's eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame as she said with a slumped head, "I know that I'm very weak for not choosing to fight alongside Nian Qi. However, I truly could not muster any courage in the face of those people. The only thought on my mind as I escaped frantically was to look for you and inform you about this. However, I did not escape far before I landed in the hands of the rainbow wolf spiders." The spirit tiger consoled hurriedly, "It's not your fault. You can't defeat them either. I would have escaped too if I was in your shoes." Su Zimo patted Little Crane on the back of her palm. "You did the right thing. If you fought those people recklessly, you would have only lost your life for nothing. Furthermore, it's lucky that you escaped." Otherwise, I would not have found out what happened to you guys either. Little Crane's expression was slightly relieved. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo asked, "Did they hurt Nian Qi?" "No." Little Crane shook her head. Their leader merely wanted to capture Nian Qi alive. He mentioned something about returning to the elders for punishment, but I didn't hear anything more. At that point, Little Crane sighed again. The reason why I escaped wasn't because they couldn't catch up to me. It was because they could not be bothered with me at all. I'll never forget the way they looked at me. It was as though I was an ant. Who would care about letting an ant go? Su Zimo pondered for a moment before suddenly asking, "What did they look like?" Little Crane replied, "The 7 of them wore extremely ancient costumes. All of them had golden hair, blue eyes, straight, high noses, and were extremely good-looking. It's easy to recognize them." The mention of that had Su Zimo's heart skipping a beat. Nian Qi's appearance did resemble them somewhat. In the battle at Ethereal Peak, Nian Qi once released her potential in a moment of desperation and her strength exploded. Her initially withered yellow hair turned straight and danced with a golden shade as well. Her eyes were blue and her aura was peerless, resembling a dignified divine being. Nian Qi's background definitely had something to do with these guys. However, Su Zimo could not identify where they were from exactly. He had a vague guess in his heart. Judging from their behavior, I don't think Nian Qi's life is in danger for the time being. Su Zimo looked at the worried Little Crane and said gently, "Don't worry. Leave this to me." "Yes?" Little Crane nodded. If there was anybody in the ancient battlefield who could save Nian Qi, it would have to be Su Zimo. "Let's leave this place first and look elsewhere to rest." Monkey, the spirit tiger, and golden lion were injured. Although they consumed quite a bit of elixirs, it would take them a few days to recover completely. For the next few days, Su Zimo and the others did not rush to travel and rested in a cave. They were already in the ancient battlefield for more than a month. The rich spirit chi coupled with the massive battle and fights they encountered triggered Su Zimo's golden core realm. He finally sensed the opportunity for a breakthrough. In his dantian, a golden dazzling core revolved slowly above the Soraka flower. The golden core's aura was slightly complicated. It had the aura of immortals as well as fiends. The two auras were supposed to oppose one another. However, there was an aura of the Buddhist sects in the golden core that created a harmony to combine the immortal and fiend auras completely. Su Zimo assumed a lotus position with his eyes closed and his black hair danced on its own. On the left, water mists rose and the phantom of a divine turtle appeared. On the right, flames blazed and the phantom of a soaring serpent descended. Gradually, as time passed, the aura within Su Zimo's body intensified. It continued until fire and water fused and the turtle and serpent intertwined. The entire void quaked for a moment. A shuddering aura emanated from Su Zimo's body, spreading through the hole like a ripple. Monkey and the others were alarmed and ran outside, watching from the entrance of the cave. Everywhere the ripple extended, rocks and sand disintegrated into emptiness. It was as though the entire cave was sliced by a sharp knife. Bang! Boom! Boom! The mountain itself trembled. The mountains were tumbling and the ground was disintegrating. Boom! There seemed to be a loud explosion within Su Zimo's body. 2 divine lights appeared in the cave. Su Zimo opened his eyes and jolted upright, roaring into the skies. His roar was resounding and penetrated metal and rock. Right in front of Monkey and the others, an air current exited from Su Zimo's mouth like a flying sword, bursting the ceiling above. His breath was like a sword. That level was beyond the limits of a golden core. Success. At this point, Su Zimo was at perfected golden core. A step further, and he would advance into nascent soul realm, cultivating the legendary essence spirit and gaining control of dermic powers. His cultivation speed was not considered as the best. However, given the fact that he could reach this stage with his immortality and demonic cultivation, it was quite a rare feat. Su Zimo's golden core faded gradually. He reigned in his aura and tranquility returned to the cave. Monkey and the others had also attained breakthroughs in their cultivation realms in the past few days, and were almost all at perfected inner core realm. The flesh they consumed by being with Su Zimo was filled with the richest life force essences. Coupled with the countless elixirs, it was only logical that they would reach this stage of cultivation. Little Crane was still slightly dejected for the past few days. It wasn't merely out of concern for Nian Qi. More than that, it was also the news of her kin's demise. Su Zimo could empathize with her emotions. The spirit tiger accompanied Little Crane day and night, trying his best to come up with ways to cheer her up, but to no avail. This day, the spirit tiger seemed to have thought of something and rushed in front of everyone excitedly, yelling, "Hey, hey, I've got a suggestion." After a brief pause, the spirit tiger took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Let's become sworn siblings." Sworn siblings? Monkey's eyes lit up. The group of them had an extremely deep relationship to begin with. Although the Golden Lion and Little Fox joined later on, they had already integrated themselves into the group with their recent interactions. Furthermore, be it Little Fox or the Golden Lion, both of them had gained everyone's acknowledgement after the battle at the ancient city. The Golden Lion was naturally delighted. Little Fox was not going to decline. She had even more reason to follow along Su Zimo after being sworn siblings. When she heard that, Little Crane perked up, and there was a little more life in the way she looked at Monkey, the spirit tiger, and everyone else. Su Zimo nodded silently. Although the spirit tiger seemed crude and brutish, this was a decent suggestion. The reason why Little Crane was upset was because she had lost a kin, but after they become sworn siblings, she would gain a few more kin. After pondering for a moment, Monkey looked at Su Zimo and said with slight hesitance, "Don't join in. You're a human after all. If you become sworn siblings with us, you'll definitely get into trouble in the future." Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo roared into laughter. "Monkey, do I look like someone so cowardly? It's true that I'm a human, but I insist on being sworn siblings with you guys. No matter the amount of trouble, I'll take it all on." "All right, let's do it then." Monkey was invigorated as well. "Sure." The spirit tiger cheered. At that moment, no one realized that this seemingly casual ceremony of being sworn siblings in a corner of the ancient battlefield would end up dictating the state of Tianhuang Mainland's future to a certain degree. Chapter 675, Seven Brothers. Chapter 675, Seven Brothers. As Monkey mentioned, Su Zimo would not be able to explain things for the rest of his life if he became sworn brothers with them. However, Su Zimo did not care. The reason why he cultivated was so that he could do as he wished. How could he be restricted by the confines of moral guidelines or the different ideals of immortals and fiends? If he wanted to establish a Tao, he must possess the boldness to break free of all restraints and rules. The spirit tiger said, "We should add someone else, although he's not here with us right now." Little Crane asked, "Little Night Spirit, right?" The spirit tiger nodded hurriedly and wagged its tail, praising, "You sure are smart, Little Crane." Little Crane blushed slightly and extended her leg, kicking the spirit tiger. "After forming my inner core, my mother gave me a name. I'm now called Ching Ching." Little Crane possessed the bloodline of the Fangs and looked different from other immortal cranes with a tinge of jade green in her feathers. The name was fitting. Little Fox called out obediently, "Sister Ching Ching." "Yes?" Ching Ching nodded and hugged Little Fox. Although this was the first time they met one another, they were already close as sisters after these few days of interaction. "Who is this little night spirit?" Little Fox asked curiously. A reminiscent look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he replied sadly, "It was a little beast that I picked up in Songlang Mountain Range more than 20 years ago. It should have grown up by now." At the mention of Night Spirit, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, and Little Crane let out looks of concern. After all, the few of them witnessed Night Spirit's birth and growth in Ethereal Peak back then. Night Spirit was picky with food and would not touch the flesh of ordinary demon beasts. In order to feed Night Spirit, Monkey, the The spirit tiger and little crane fought through the jungle and sustained injuries all over to obtain different flesh so that Night Spirit could taste them all. Although that period of time was tough and dangerous, they were ecstatic as they looked at Night Spirit grow bit by bit. It felt like everything was worth it. Night Spirit was well-behaved the moment he was born and knew who was good to him. His fangs and claws were extremely sharp, but he had never bared them to Monkey, the spirit tiger, and little crane. It's been a long time since I've seen that cub. I wonder how he's like now that he's grown up. Does he still remember us? Monkey was in a rare emotional state. Ever since what happened in Dongling Valley and Su Zimo and Night Spirit fled far away into the capital of Great Zhou, Monkey and the others had not seen Night Spirit. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 years had passed. Su Zimo gazed into the distance and murmured, 20 years ago, Night Spirit accompanied Xiaoning to Elixir Yang's sect in the Middle Continent. I wonder if we'll get to meet them again this time round in the intermediate ancient battlefield. There should be no issues including Night Spirit with us, right? The spirit tiger asked. Monkey and Ching nodded. There was naturally no way Little Fox would object to it. She was satisfied as long as Su Zimo was inside. The Golden Lion was a little confused and did not know what Night Spirit was. However, he shrugged to express that he was fine with it since everyone agreed to it. The spirit tiger shifted his gaze and coughed gently. Since we're swearing to be siblings, we should talk about seniority. If we make that clear, we can't change that in the future, right? Monkey scoffed coldly as he saw through the spirit tiger's intentions right away. Why? You want to be the boss? No. The spirit tiger shuddered in shock and waved it off immediately with a sheepish smile. No way. Even if I thought that way, I wouldn't have the balls. Heh. There were a total of 7 of them along with Night Spirit, and there were demons and humans. Everything would definitely be a mess if they judged purely based on age. What do you have in mind? Hurry and spit it out. Ching extended her legs and kicked the spirit tiger again. The spirit tiger was not frustrated. Instead, it said joyfully with a slight excitement, Su Zimo is the reason why we're all here today. He's the only one suitable to be the big brother. Furthermore, it's undeniable that he's the strongest. Everyone nodded. Monkey had no objections either. He had a prideful nature, and he wouldn't object to Su Zimo being the only one that was ranked before him. Su Zimo smiled calmly without interrupting and merely listened to how the spirit tiger wanted things to be arranged. Invigorated, the spirit tiger wagged its tail and smiled in a pandering manner to Monkey. Only Brother Monkey has the right to be second. Firstly, Brother Monkey knew our big brother the earliest and is the most experienced. Secondly, apart from Big Brother, Brother Monkey is the strongest in combat. Monkey was satisfied with the explanation and grinned. Ching, Little Fox, and the Golden Lion naturally had no objections. Actually, the spirit tiger wanted to be the second place as well. However, he was most likely going to be tormented back and forth by Monkey if he took over that position. As such, he decided against it. The spirit tiger took a deep breath and cleared his throat, saying deeply with a solemn expression, I guess Hubatian will have to be the third. I knew Big Brother a long time ago, and I'm strong as well. The spirit tiger patted his chest and declared with gusto. This was his true intention. With this position settled, he could openly bully everyone at the back in the future. Of course, he could not bully Ching. Little Fox was protected by Su Zimo, so he could not touch her as well. There was Night Spirit, but he had better forget about that. With that, there was only Golden Hair left. In the past few days, given the violent objection of the Golden Lion, he finally fought for a slightly better name for himself, from Yellow Hair to Golden Hair. At least with the Golden Word, he would not be disgracing the bloodline of the Golden Lions. The spirit tiger glared at the Golden Lion and snickered evilly. With that arrangement, Ching would logically be number 4. There was not much to discuss about the first 4 spots. However, the Golden Lion was pretty done by the time it came to number 5. According to the Spirit Tiger's arrangement, Night Spirit would be number 5. After all, Night Spirit was the first to know Su Zimo after Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, and Ching Ching. However, the Golden Lion did not know who Night Spirit was at all. He was definitely indignant being ranked behind a little beast that he had never seen before. Yet, immediately after, he was suppressed mercilessly by Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, and Ching Ching. His objections were to no avail. Little Fox was number 6. The Golden Lion hid in a corner with misty eyes, a few slaps on his face, and a few footprints on his body. He had a gloomy look on his face and no longer spoke. The Spirit Tiger laughed when he looked at the Golden Lion. "Golden Hair, are you happy to be number 7? The Golden Lion seethed at the smug look on the Spirit Tiger's face. Monkey teased, "It's okay, Golden Hair. If we have anyone else joining us in the future, they will be placed behind you. Brother Golden Hair, although I'm in front of you, I'm not going to bully you," Little Fox said with an earnest expression. The Golden Lion wanted to cry. To be fair, he truly could not afford to mess with the people before him. Although Little Fox was the weakest, she was protected by Su Zimo. There was only a single person he was indignant about the more he thought about it. "I don't know who this Night Spirit is, but you better stay away from me. Otherwise, I'm going to teach you a good lesson so that you hand over the number 5 position, little thing. How dare a nameless little beast climb over my head? Humph." The Golden Lion rubbed his palms and grumbled internally. Chapter 676, Ancestor Cave Abode. Chapter 676, Ancestor Cave Abode. Among the 7 of them, apart from Su Zimo, the rest of them were demons with easygoing attitudes. There was no need for any messy formal ceremonies. After the suggestion, everyone used the ground as a replacement for incense and kowtowed towards the skies. That action alone sealed the oath of their swear. Thereafter, everyone became closer and Ching Ching's mood improved as well. The Spirit Tiger followed behind Ching Ching every day, pandering with his but twerking. There was naturally much joy in their journey with the presence of the Spirit Tiger. This day, they arrived at a vast plains. Su Zimo's expression changed as he paused in his tracks and listened. Among the 7 of them, his 5 senses were the strongest, a whole different level above the other 6. He was always the first to notice if something was wrong. "First, what's wrong?" the Golden Lion asked. Su Zimo said deeply, "There's quite a bit of commotion in the east, so there should be quite a lot of people there. It's not just cultivators, there's also the faint roars of demon beasts." Suddenly, the ground quaked gently. Dong, dong, dong. A series of movements sounded faintly from the east, as though someone was beating the heavenly drums. The next moment, a bedazzling light surged into the air and illuminated the world. A treasure was born. The reason why the major sects and factions of Tianhuang mainland were willing to give it their all to send cultivators to the ancient battlefield was because there were many cave abodes here that were left behind by ancestors. There were also a few inheritance grounds, many ancient secret grounds, and countless tombs with endless mysterious treasures in them. If anyone could obtain some of the secret skills or mystic weapons, they had a chance of turning extremely powerful overnight. Even if they did not need it themselves, they could present it to their sects in exchange for fabulous rewards. Some factions and sects could even rise because of a single opportunity, establishing their foundation and transforming into a powerful major faction from a nameless small sect. In fact, there was even a chance that they could instantly be ranked among one of the 108 upper sects. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and whispered, "Let's go and check things out." With that, he sped over in a flash. Monkey and the others followed closely behind. Not long after, Su Zimo gradually slowed down and gazed into the distance. Not far ahead, there was a towering mountain peak that extended into the clouds. Around the mountain peak were many cultivators. There were also countless roars of demon beasts above and below the mountain peak. A massive conflict had broken out between cultivators and demons. Spirit energy surged in midair, releasing beams of light with scorching heat waves. Countless ancient trees were cut with sand flying everywhere. Nobody knew how long the battle had been ongoing, but the sight was tragic, with the mountain peak drenched in blood. Su Zimo could clearly see that there was something strange about the mountain peak. It was split from the middle, as though a pair of invisible hands had ripped it apart. However, in the middle of the mountain peak, instead of mountains and rocks, there was a gigantic palace that did not seem like it was man-made. It was like a work of God. The palace was riddled with holes, but within, there were ancient weapons laid out one after another. There were also many elixirs and a few ancient books that were filled with dust. Su Zimo whispered, "This is the birth of an Ancestor cave abode, and two major factions are fighting within for the treasures. The fight is too chaotic. There's no way to see what's within." Monkey frowned. "If we barge in right now, we'll definitely be targeted." Little Fox shifted her gaze and glanced around. There must be quite a number of cultivators and ferocious beasts waiting by the sidelines for an opportunity to strike. Let's wait a while more to see if there's any treasures worth us making a move for. We shouldn't get involved in this mess. Su Zimo had a calm expression. The simple did not seem simple given how secretive it was located in the middle of a mountain peak. However, Su Zimo was not in a rush. It won't be too late even if he struck when a great treasure truly appeared. Boom! A human paragon released a golden core phenomenon and clashed against a few ferocious beasts. The resultant force spread outwards, and even the entire palace trembled. Many weapons were caught up in the energy fluctuation and scattered in midair. The eyes of the human paragon shone as he grabbed one of the swords and injected spirit energy into it. The sword shone brightly with 5 spirit patterns. A perfect spirit weapon. Slash! The human paragon shouted and waved the sword. A bedazzling sword light streaked through the air with rainbow colors, slicing the ferocious beasts on the other end into two, creating a blood mist. Haha, good sword. The human paragon was delighted. His strength had increased significantly after gaining the sword, and it meant that he would stand a greater chance at obtaining a spot on the phenomenon ranking. Many other cultivators moved as well to snatch the weapons that were scattered in midair. Su Zimo could see clearly that among the weapons, the weakest were at supreme grade, and there were more than 10 perfect grade ones. A single palace contained so many treasures. For most cultivators, gaining a supreme grade meant an increase in strength. Gaining a perfect spirit weapon meant their strength would increase tenfold, be it supreme grade or perfect spirit weapons. None of them attracted Su Zimo any longer. The greatest goal of his trip this time round was to see if he could get any high-level dermic weapons. It was not only for himself, but also Monkey and the others. Although Monkey and the others were demons, after they broke through their inner cores and formed their essence spirits, they would be able to refine dermic weapons for themselves as well. It was best if they could get their hands on a suitable dermic weapon before breaking through to the nascent soul realm. Boom! It was yet another deafening sound. Another wall in the palace toppled and many weapons that were hung on it bounced. Those weapons were clearly different from spirit weapons. Even in the void where spirit energy was fluctuating in a berserk manner, they had no reaction at all, and their patterns were even more intricate and seemingly divine. Dermic weapons. There were dermic weapons in the palace. Look, that flying sword has 2 dermic patterns. It's a middle-grade dermic weapon. For golden cores and the many spirit demons, a single dermic weapon was enough to fuel their greed. It meant that they would get to possess a middle-grade dermic weapon the moment they advanced to nascent soul realm. 3 dermic patterns. It's a superior grade dermic weapon. Attack! A series of exclamations came from the crowd. A scarlet spear hovered in midair with 3 dermic patterns on it. Boom! A gigantic demon beast soared into the air. It resembled a tiger, but it had a pair of wings behind its back, emitting an endless ferocity with a menacing gaze. One of the 4 great ancient ferocious beasts, Cheong-Chi, the golden lion, said slowly with a grim expression. Even among pure-blooded ferocious beasts, they had varying strength levels. For example, the legendary 4 great ancient ferocious beasts were much stronger than other ferocious beasts. The moment the Cheong-Chi appeared, It opened its mouth and devoured a cultivator who was supporting a golden core phenomenon. Within a few chomps, the latter was crushed and swallowed as blood oozed from the side of the Cheongqi's mouth. It was way too violent. Even a golden core phenomenon could not withstand it. Raging city blaze. A roar sounded from the ground. A human paragon wearing blazing scarlet robes charged into the battlefield with a gigantic ancient city behind him. The ancient city blazed with flames that surged into the air and incinerated all living beings. The moment the ancient city descended, it crushed another pure-blooded ferocious beast into sludge before burning it into ashes. That was one of the 10 upper sects of the North region, a paragon of Blaze Columbus Valley. A superior-grade dermic weapon had shown itself. More paragons and ferocious beasts were entering the battlefield. Chapter 677, Corpse Refinement Cult. Chapter 677, Corpse Refinement Cult. Should we go and fight for it? The spirit tiger was raring to go with excitement in his eyes. There's no need to. Su Zimo had a calm expression and a glint sparkled in his eyes. Although superior-grade dermic weapons seem good, it's not worth us taking the risk to enter this mess. In the ancient battlefield, even for dermic weapons that once belonged to Dao lords or mighty figures, their dermic powers had long dissipated without the refinement of essence spirit and the passing of countless years. These weapons had fallen to the grade of perfected lord dermic weapons a long time ago. The only difference was that their dermic patterns were still around and their grades were unchanged. Therefore, even if any dermic weapons appeared, they were mostly for perfected lords. Go, let's leave this place first. Su Zimo waved and prepared to leave with Monkey and the others. You want to leave after coming here? A gigantic ferocious bird spread its wings and covered the skies with a torrential demonic aura. Its gaze was sharp as it glared down, diving towards Little Fox with its outstretched talons. Foxes were natural-born seductresses. Unless they had a strong backing, countless demon beasts would fight for them the moment they appeared. Ching Ching raised her brows with a hint of displeasure. Without even transforming, she leaped into the air and crossed her legs, kicking a series of shadows into the air. Her thighs were like guillotines, letting out the sound of air slicing. Ching Ching was already rather beautiful in her human form. Coupled with her slender and tall figure, she was like a graceful dragon dancing in the air. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter. On the ground, the spirit tiger watched with a gaping mouth, drooling constantly. His gaze was dazed and he remarked squarely, her legs seem like they can spread apart right beneath her belly button. Piak. Monkey sent the spirit tiger with a single slap. Bang, bang, bang. Ching Ching avoided the talons of the ferocious bird and pummeled it furiously on the head, causing it to explode. Croak, croak. A golden toad the size of a mountain squatted at the side with widened eyes, puffing its cheeks and letting out a strange sound that grew louder and louder. It was as though thunder had just rumbled. All of a sudden, the golden toad opened its mouth. A blood beam flashed and wrapped around Little Fox. It was the tongue of the golden toad race. It was so fast that it could not be seen clearly. This was the strongest killing move of the golden toad that it used mainly to capture other demon beasts for food. Most demon beasts were devoured by the golden toad before they could react. Although Little Fox was unable to defend against this, there was no trace of fear or panic in her eyes. Any single one of the few figures around her was enough to kill the golden toad. Piak. Just as the blood tongue was about to make contact with Little Fox's body, a hairy palm appeared and grabbed the golden toad's tongue. Monkey's eyes flashed with a scarlet glow as he glared at the golden toad not far away and grinned. Shing. Exerting strength in both arms, Monkey ripped the blood tongue off with blood spraying everywhere. Boom. Immediately after, Monkey's legs landed on the ground and his body expanded. He arrived before the golden toad in a stride and swung his massive fist down towards the latter. The golden toad retracted its severed tongue and its mouth was filled with fresh blood as hatred surged through its eyes. Suddenly, blood bubbles the size of fists appeared on its body, enlarging by the second. Snap! Su Zimo pointed gently, and a divine thunderbolt struck down onto the golden toad's head. The golden toad shuddered, and all the blood bubbles that appeared burst immediately with fuming smoke. The poison in its blood was cleansed by the power of thunder instantly. Bang! Monkey's fist crushed heavily on the golden toad's head, killing that ferocious beast instantly. More demon beasts charged towards them. Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. "Follow me. We'll leave this place first." Before his words were finished, Su Zimo retrieved Blood Quencher from his storage bag, and his blood chi surged. Slashing his way through, he created a bloodied path in the pack of beasts. When they arrived at the outer perimeter, Su Zimo's group turned back. More and more demon beasts and cultivators were arriving in the vicinity of the mountain peak, and all of them were bloodthirsty in the fight for the treasures. This was the ancient battlefield. It was a place where opportunities and dangers coexisted. Let's look elsewhere. There seems to be something else that's odd around this area. Su Zimo circulated his universal hearing and after a moment, pointed in a direction before speeding over with everyone. Not long after, the group of them stopped. There was a swamp ahead of them where another palace stood with many elixirs and weapons hovering in midair. Many cultivators from various factions and sects were fighting to the death with demon beasts in midair for the weapons and elixirs. The swamp was dyed red with blood. Many corpses fell from midair into the swamp, sinking slowly before vanishing. Su Zimo focused his gaze. There were many weapons in midair, and some of them were dermic weapons. However, the best among them only had 3 dermic patterns. They were superior-grade dermic weapons. For most cultivators, it was worth fighting for superior-grade dermic weapons. However, after a moment of hesitation, Su Zimo decided against it. "Let's go." There was naturally no way Monkey and the others would object. The group of them continued. Not long after, they caught sight of another cave abode appearing and another group of sects and factions fighting for the treasures left behind. After watching by the sidelines for a moment, Su Zimo shook his head and left with Monkey and the others. For the next day, the group of them traveled in twists and turns. In that area, more than 10 cave abodes appeared with various factions and sects fighting for them. Among them, they even caught sight of disciples from super sects. Weird. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. He did not know what happened, but it seemed like many cave abodes that were hidden in that area had appeared all of a sudden. The group of them continued, and once again, the sound of a fight accompanied by the roars of demon beasts and screeches of ferocious birds could be heard ahead. It was extremely noisy. Yet another cave abode. The golden lion's gaze shimmered, and he murmured, "The rod that those guys are fighting for seems to be a supreme-grade dermic weapon with 4 dermic patterns." In midair, 2 groups of cultivators were fighting for it. One party only had 2 cultivators. The other side had dozens of cultivators, all of whom had frightfully pale faces with an extremely lean aura around them. Their lips were purplish-green, and they resembled malevolent ghosts from hell. The cultivators stood motionlessly on the ground, wielding long rods in their hands as they controlled dozens of ghastly corpses on the other side. Every single corpse emitted a thick, rotting smell and shone with a metallic luster all over their bodies. They were invulnerable, as though they were refined with something unknown. Their fingernails were long and looked like sharp daggers that shimmered with a faint green glow. All of them were laced with poison. It was one of the 5 heretical doctrines, corpse refinement cult. The corpses were battle corpses specially refined by corpse refinement cult. Invulnerable against weapons with immense strength and toxic poison in their bodies, they were extremely frightening and troublesome to deal with. The dozens of corpses surrounded the 2 people in their midst and attacked wildly. Chapter 678, Underworld Emperor Phenomenon. Chapter 678, Underworld Emperor Phenomenon. Of the 2 of them, one of them was rotund and short, like an airbag. The other one had a buzz cut and looked square and honest, like a country bumpkin. The honest cultivator wielded a thin, iron rod in his left hand that was etched with complex and intricate patterns. Thin threads that were almost invisible extended from the fingertips of his right hand. He was gathering chi like threads. That was the secret skill of one of the 5 heretical doctrines, Puppet Sect. By condensing the spirit chi in their dantians into threads to wrap around the puppets they refined, they could control their puppets from a distance to fight against their enemies. The honest cultivator was controlling 5 different puppets. One of them was extremely heavy and shone with a metallic luster. Every single step it took created a deep footprint in the ground. Every single move it made was heavy and firm. Another puppet's body that was made with an unknown material was almost transparent. It was fluid like water and seemed weak. When the puppet's body was penetrated by a battle corpse, its muscles twitched and covered the wound swiftly. Another puppet was scarlet and blazed with flames all over. Every single move it made carried a scorching heat wave that turned the surroundings dry. The honest cultivator was dividing his attention to cultivate 5 corpses of the 5 elements, creating a formation that increased his combat strength. Amazing! The Golden Lion praised. Although their group consisted mostly of demons, they had fought with many cultivators and naturally knew how to judge the combat strength of cultivators. However, although the honest cultivator was strong and could control 5 puppets, he could not defend against the wild attacks of dozens of battle corpses. It was thanks to the golden core phenomenon released by the fatty that the 2 of them were able to survive till now. It was a pale yellow river current that was huge with countless ripples. It emitted an endless aura that seemed like it could wash away all the sins in the world. Many corpses floated in the yellow river. Ooh, ooh. It was as though countless ghosts were screaming. Menacing faces appeared one after another in the river. The golden core phenomenon surrounded and protected the 2 of them in the middle, creating waves to defend against the charging battle corpses. The battle corpses seemed wary towards the yellow river. Each time water from the yellow river splashed onto the battle corpses, green smoke would fume along with a sizzling sound. As though they were sentient, the battle corpses would yelp and retreat, hopping on the spot. Their horrifying greenish-black eyes bulged slightly, bloodshot and filled with fright. What is this? Little Fox shuddered. The sight of the yellow river gave her chills. If Su Zimo and the others were not standing in front of her, she would have escaped in fright a long time ago. That's one of the ancient phenomenons, yellow springs. Su Zimo said slowly. In the era where ancient emperors rose one after another, the Underworld Emperor mustered his courage with great conviction to purge his own soul and take a walk around death's gates. He witnessed the yellow springs personally and was inspired to create that golden core phenomenon. It's said that there's a dragon vein hidden in the depths of the yellow springs, and it's extremely powerful. With that, the Underworld Emperor created a peerless mystic classic, the Astounding Dragon Sutra, and it's the #1 mystic classic for locating acupoints. Ching Ching raised her brow slightly with a contemplative expression before murmuring, "That fatty looks familiar." Although there was a putrid haze that affected one's vision all over the place, Ching Ching noticed something amiss after looking for a moment. "It's little fatty from Ethereal Peak," Ching Ching exclaimed. After more than 20 years, little fatty had matured significantly, and his features had changed slightly as well. However, his countenance remained the same. "That's right, it's him." Su Zimo nodded. The other cultivator is also an old friend. He was originally a cultivator of Southern Mountain Sect, Shijian. Do you guys recognize him? The legacy left behind by the Underworld Emperor in Tianhuang mainland was one of 5 current heretical doctrines, Tomb Sect. In the elementary ancient battlefield, Little Fatty was taken away by Tomb Sect. Shijian, on the other hand, joined another of the 5 heretical doctrines, Puppet Sect. "Fatty, I'm sorry for burdening you." Shijian's face was pale, and he was sweating on the forehead. It was evident that his spirit energy was exhausted, and he could not carry on. While he gained powerful combat strength controlling 5 puppets, the toll on one's spirit energy was also increased by multitudes. "What are you saying that for? Hold on and don't get distracted. We'll definitely be able to get out." Little Fatty's chubby palm trembled as he controlled the water of Yellow Springs, creating waves that defended the rush of the battle corpses. Although he said that, Little Fatty's Yellow Springs phenomenon was also showing signs of exhaustion with diminished power. It had become unstable against the continuous rush of the battle corpses. As he defended against the battle corpses outside, Little Fatty said, "Do you know why I looked to you for help this time round?" "Why?" Jian asked. "Because you're stupid." Even at this moment, Little Fatty was optimistic and said cheerily, "As the saying goes, the dumb are favored by fortune. Since you're so stupid, you definitely have a good, long life. The reason why I looked to you for help was because I wanted a little bit of that fortune." "You're still in the mood for idle chat?" A corpse refinement cult cultivator slapped his storage bag with a cold expression, waving his hand to splash a pale yellow powder on the battle corpses. Little Fatty took a sniff and exclaimed in shock, "Corpse berserk powder." Before his words were finished, the battle corpses that were covered by the pale yellow powder roared in a deep, resounding manner. The battle corpse grew, and the clothes they were wearing exploded, revealing thick green veins on their body, neck, and face. They slithered around the skin like small snakes and looked menacing. As they roared, the battle corpses emitted a foul stench from their mouth, and two pairs of sharp fangs grew from their upper and lower jaws. They were stained with blood and looked extremely unsettling. Bang! 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 The strength of the battle corpses grew significantly, and they no longer feared the power of Yellow Springs, as though they had gone berserk. They charged towards Little Fatty's golden core phenomenon continuously, causing it to quake violently. Instantly, the Yellow Springs phenomenon quivered. Even the Yellow Springs itself seemed to have calmed down. Lone souls, hungry ghosts, and the corpses of fiend celestials were contained in Yellow Springs. But now, Yellow Springs seemed to have been suppressed by the dozens of battle corpses that were standing in it as they roared into the air with a torrential ferocity. A wrathful look flashed through Little Fatty's eyes. If the Underworld Emperor knew that the Yellow Springs phenomenon had fallen to this point with its corpses within suppressed, he would definitely explode in rage. Right then, a voice sounded. Although it was neither loud nor soft, it overwhelmed the roars of the battle corpses and spread to every single corner of the battlefield. How dare a bunch of evildoers behave so audaciously in the ancient battlefield where countless emperors have perished? Little Fatty shuddered when he heard that voice, and his bead-like eyes widened with disbelief. Jian panted, but a curious expression appeared on his face as well. That voice sounded familiar. "It's Boss." Little Fatty could not help but exclaim. "Boss?" Jian stoned for a moment before asking, "Brother Su of Ethereal Peak." "That's right. I can't be wrong." Little Fatty supported his Yellow Springs phenomenon and leaped, looking outward frantically as he waved with an excited look on his face. "Boss, I'm here. Hurry and come save me." Chapter 679, Suppressing Corpses. Chapter 679, Suppressing Corpses. Who is the tactless one trying to meddle in the affairs of the corpse refinement cult? The leader of the corpse refinement cult cultivators glared at Su Zimo's incoming group. His eyes were unblinking, resembling those of dead fishes, and his voice was sinister and murderous. Another person said coldly, "Beasts, you had better scram far away. Otherwise, given corpse refinement cult's supreme mystic classic, we can easily turn you guys into battle corpses and let you suffer a fate worse than death." "Is that so?" Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. Nobody saw what he did, but in a flash, he bolted into the corpse refinement cult group like an arrow. It was too fast. The distance between both parties was not far to begin with. Su Zimo's inner core and golden core were at perfected realm. When he circulated both cores together with his demonic and spirit energy alongside the power of his blood chi, even pure-blooded ferocious beasts with sharp, keen senses and powerful bodies wouldn't be able to react to that burst speed, let alone the cultivators of corpse refinement cult. Poof, poof, poof. There was no technique or spirit art. He barged in purely with his body. right in front of everyone. The corpse refinement cult cultivators that stood in Su Zimo's way were rammed into pieces with blood spewing everywhere, like gigantic watermelons. He was a human weapon. Nobody could withstand his might as he charged his way through the crowd. 7 corpse refinement cult cultivators were sneering a moment earlier. Immediately after, they were rammed to death without even understanding how they died. A corpse refinement cult cultivator reacted to it and defended instinctively by propping his chaos essence iron rod in front of him. Unexpectedly, a black shadow darted over. Snap! The iron rod in his hands was snapped into 2. The middle portion where it was snapped thrust into his chest like a spear, penetrating it completely. Another corpse refinement cult cultivator yelled and withdrew a shimmering silver shield from his storage bag before injecting spirit energy into it furiously. Instantly, a bright beam shone. The shield expanded with the wind like a silver mountain peak that guarded the man behind it. It shone with 5 spirit lights and was bedazzling. It was a perfect-grade defensive spirit weapon. In the cultivation world of the Great Zhou dynasty, a perfect spirit weapon would cause quite a huge stir. However, Su Zimo's expression did not change. In fact, there were no emotions in his eyes. He had seen too many of such weapons. Right now, he had dozens of perfect spirit weapons in his storage bag alone. Su Zimo's speed did not slow down as his body rose gently. With a cold gaze, he strode forward and stomped down furiously on that gigantic silver shield. Plow heaven stride. A torrential force surged forward from Su Zimo's body. Even if he was facing the heavens, he could plow a massive ravine beneath his feet, let alone a single mountain. Boom! The glowing silver shield was stomped beneath Su Zimo's feet. The corpse refinement cult cultivator that hid behind the shield was stomped into sludge despite the shield standing between him and Su Zimo without even making a peep of sound. Su Zimo's execution of the many killing moves in the Mystic Classic of the 12 Demon Kings of the Great Wilderness was getting more fluid. As his demonic cultivation deepened, the power of those killing moves became even more frightening as well. The crowd was in an uproar. Not far away, many cultivators were prepared to join the fight. However, all of them stopped instinctively with dumbstruck expressions when they witnessed this. It was way too ferocious. In the blink of an eye, 9 corpse refinement cult cultivators died in the hands of this green-robed cultivator. The scary thing was that the 9 of them were completely helpless against him. Who is he? What's his background? I don't know. The ancient battlefield is indeed a place where paragons roam and monster incarnates are everywhere. It's too scary. That's right, notwithstanding the legacy disciples of the various super sects, I heard that a monster incarnate unlike anything history has ever seen appeared in the North region. I heard of him as well. I heard that he sowed a grudge with Glass Palace and actually managed to murder all their cultivators that have arrived in the ancient battlefield. Man, that's savage. The discussions were loud and fervent. On the battlefield, the remaining corpse refinement cult cultivators were shocked and retreated hurriedly along with the battle corpses that they were controlling not far away. Corpse refinement cult cultivators were almost completely reliant on their battle corpses for strength. Without the protection of their battle corpses, they were extremely weak physically and their actual strength was not much different from ordinary cultivators. The leader of the corpse refinement cult cultivators said coldly, "You truly have a death wish." Corpse refinement cult cultivators spend their days with corpses as their companions and their bodies are filled with poison as well. You won't be able to escape death after crushing their bodies. That's right. Another corpse refinement cult cultivator sneered, "Beast, have you realized that the blood chi in your body is starting to deteriorate?" Hee hee. Ha 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 ha. Su Zimo reared his head in laughter loudly. The blood chi in his body surged with the mighty sound of a tsunami. He did not seem like he was poisoned at all. His bloodline was like a cauldron blazing with flames. It could incinerate, evaporate, and cleanse everything. Even the poison of poison sect might not be a threat to him, let alone the poison from corpses. The faces of the corpse refinement cult cultivators turned pale as a sheet. A tall and mighty shadow charged in front of them, whirling two fists like hammers and barging left and right in the crowd. There was no way the corpse refinement cult cultivators could withstand the iron fists of Monkey. One after another, figures were sent flying. By the time they landed on the ground, they were corpses without any life in them. An evil gust of wind blew past. A ferocious tiger with rumbling malevolent chi lunged down from above the lion, ripping the body of a corpse refinement cult cultivator apart by the stomach as though it was extremely hungry. The moment the poison of the corpse made contact with the fur of the spirit tiger, it was cleansed into emptiness by an electric current. Roar! A golden lion with a dignified might charged into the crowd and let out a deafening roar. The few corpse refinement cult cultivators closest to it started bleeding from the eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. They were bleeding from all orifices. The brains of those cultivators were shook into sludge. Ching Ching and Little Fox did not head up. The two of them definitely wanted nothing more than to get far away from those eerie cultivators with the stench of rotting corpses. Even so, it took slightly more than 10 breaths for Su Zimo, Monkey, the Spirit Tiger, and Golden Lion to decimate the dozens of corpse refinement cult cultivators entirely. Everything ended before the dozens of battle corpses that surrounded Little Fatty and Shi Jian could retreat to help. In truth, corpse refinement cult cultivation worlds were extremely troublesome to deal with in the cultivation world. Unless there was a need to, disciples of various super sects would not want to provoke them intentionally. The battle corpses they had were invulnerable to fire, water, and were extremely strong such that they could take on perfect or even connate spirit weapons head-on. Corpse refinement cult cultivators were almost impossible to defeat with a battle corpse standing before them. However, the weakness of corpse refinement cult cultivators was evident as well. The moment they fall, their battle corpses would not be controlled and were no longer any threat. By understanding that weakness, Su Zimo and the others did not give the corpse refinement cult cultivators any breathing room and slaughtered the group of them with a thunderous might in slightly more than 10 breaths. The dozens of battle corpses fell forward stiffly, turning into true corpses. Chapter 680, Distraction. Chapter 680, Distraction. Little Fatty had just consumed a few elixirs and was panting. Before he could calm down, he saw that the corpse refinement cult cultivators were already slain completely. His eyes widened and his jaws almost dropped to the ground. The rumors are not lying. Brother Su is still ferocious as ever. Shi Jian gulped and muttered his thoughts. Bro, I'm glad you're here. I've missed you to death. Little Fatty's character had not changed as he scurried over like a gigantic meatball. He lunged into Su Zimo's embrace emotionally with tears and snot. Peeling that fat face away, Su Zimo scolded with a chuckle. Stop acting. Shi Jian came over as well and smiled at Su Zimo with cupped fists. Much thanks, Brother Su. What's with the politeness after not meeting each other for 20 years? Su Zimo laughed with a relaxed expression. Back in Xintian City in the elementary ancient battlefield, he welcomed the 4 mounted bandits single-handedly. However, Little Fatty, Ji Chengtian, Little Fatty, and Shi Jian were extremely bold and returned to fight with him. They were brothers who had gone through thick and thin. Little Fatty laughed. Silly Jian is foolish as always. You can just ignore him, boss. The 3 of them had reunited after a long time, and words could not describe Little Fatty's joy. Shi Jian did not have much to say, and merely chuckled foolishly the entire time. Although Su Zimo seemed composed, he was smiling a lot more than usual as well. Thank you for your help, fellow brothers of the demon race. Little Fatty chuckled and greeted Monkey and the others with cupped fists. He got along with people easily to begin with. Furthermore, he already knew Monkey and the Spirit Tiger from back in Ethereal Peak. Boss, I've heard from Silly Jian about everything in the North region. Little Fatty consoled. Don't worry, follow me back to my sect this time round. I'll persuade my master to take you in. Although Tomb Sect's legacy is not strong, we've lasted through history and have some foundation as well. Furthermore, Tomb Sect is the best at being secretive. There's no way outsiders know about where we're located. Almost the entire North region knew about Suzimo's feud with Glass Palace. Ordinary cultivators would want nothing more than to get far away from Suzimo in fear of being implicated. However, Little Fatty had no such considerations at all. Instead, he was thinking up ideas and solutions for Suzimo. Suzimo patted Little Fatty on the shoulder gratefully. Although it sounded like a possible idea, it was not practical. Little Fatty was a golden core. Even if he was a legacy disciple, his words would not carry much weight in the sect. Most sects would definitely not want to go against a super sect such as Glass Palace just for someone like him. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages. Furthermore, although Tomb Sect was one of the 5 heretical doctrines, it was well known that they had few disciples. There was no way they could go against Glass Palace. Brother Su, I could head back and explain things to Puppet Sect as well. Shi Jian mustered his courage and wanted to help Suzimo with his troubles as well. Suzimo waved it off with a smile and diverted the topic. It's fine, we can talk about this next time, right? How did you guys end up fighting against Corpse Refinement cult cultivators? Shi Jian gripped his fists and said hatefully, Puppet Sect and Corpse Refinement cult have a deep enmity to begin with. There's naturally no way they would let me off the moment they saw me. Oh. Suzimo raised his brow. In Tianhuang mainland, among the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, 6 Buddhist monasteries, 5 heretical doctrines, and 4 unorthodox groups, there were truly deep-rooted enmity between some super sects that went a long way back. For example, Heavenly Dipper sect of the immortal sects and Malevolent Earth sect of the fiend sects were long enemies. There were also similar conflicts between immortal sections. Glass Palace had an extremely poor relationship with Snowdrift Valley of the Middle Continent. Shi Jian continued, originally, there weren't 5 heretical doctrines. Corpse Refinement cult was established by a traitor of Puppet Sect. He was the most talented cultivator in Puppet Sect, and even had the potential of becoming an emperor if he continued cultivating. However, he ended up veering onto the wrong path and focused entirely on corpses. In order to refine corpses, he became addicted to killing and sinned endlessly, cultivating himself to the point where he resembled neither human nor ghost. Eventually, he incurred the wrath of the sect. Everyone was immersed as Shi Jian recounted the history of Puppet Sect. When Shi Jian paused briefly, Little Fox could not help but ask, what happened after? Shi Jian let out a deep breath. An expert of a sect took pity on his potential and could not bear to see him cripple his cultivation just like that. That person tried to persuade him to repent countless times, but was eventually killed by him instead. Sigh. He was truly powerful. He managed to escape even against the combined attack of experts from many sects. Although a patriarch of the sect eventually moved in, that person had already established himself and forged an alliance with one of the other heretical doctrines, Poison Sect. Even if we gave it our all to kill him, Puppet Sect would suffer immense losses and even face possible annihilation. Left with no other choice, we could only allow him to leave. Not long after, he created Corpse Refinement cult in Tianhuang mainland, and as it grew stronger, it became one of the 5 heretical doctrines. No wonder. At that point, realization flashed through Suzimo's eyes. Earlier on, I noticed that the technique Corpse Refinement cult used to refine their battle corpses was similar to the technique of Puppet Sect. The only difference was that one was evil and the other righteous. So, they had the same background. Unfortunately, although our backgrounds are the same, the situation between us is now irreconcilable, Shi Jian said. Little Fatty shifted his beady eyes and surveyed the surroundings. When he saw that more cultivators were gathering, he whispered, let's leave first. This is not a good place to linger further. Yes? Suzimo nodded. You guys leave first. I'll go get my hands on that iron rod. Although the fight between them and Corpse Refinement cult had subsided, more cultivators had been attracted over due to the commotion. Right now, many cultivators and demon beasts were already fighting, and it was all for that supreme-grade dermic weapon with 4 dermic patterns in midair. Suzimo had his eyes set on that object as well. They traveled for an entire day past more than 10 cave abodes, but this was the highest graded dermic weapon. No, don't go. Little Fatty held back Su Zimo by the arm and whispered, "There's no need for us to fight for that scrap metal. Let's head somewhere else." Ah! Su Zimo froze for a moment. Wasn't his tone way too arrogant? A supreme-grade dermic weapon was considered as scrap metal in the eyes of Little Fatty. Little Fatty said in a mysterious manner, "Follow me. I'll take you guys elsewhere." What? Su Zimo could not help but ask. Little Fatty asked instead, "How many cave abodes have you seen appear today?" Su Zimo replied, "More than 10. Yes? Little Fatty was not surprised. Based on my deductions, more than 10 more of such cave abodes are going to appear. So many? Su Zimo was surprised and asked with a frown, "Why are so many cave abodes appearing all of a sudden? Did something happen to this place?" Sort of. Little Fatty retracted his smile in a rare manner and said darkly, "There's a huge tomb beneath this place where the true treasures lie. These cave abodes are nothing but a distraction left behind by the tomb master." Chapter 681, Mighty Figure of Tomb Sect. Chapter 681, Mighty Figure of Tomb Sect. Su Zimo was surprised when he heard that. How extravagant! This legendary master of the tomb was willing to painstakingly set up dozens of diversionary cave abodes so as to hide his treasures and legacy. More than that, the diversionary tombs contained quite a number of treasures that caused countless cultivators and demons to fight for it, leaving corpses in their wake. Su Zimo deduced, "I'm sure the identity of the tomb master is far from simple if he has this many treasures." The tomb master is a conjoint body mighty figure, Little Fatty said with conviction. No wonder. Su Zimo nodded. A conjoint body mighty figure was probably the only one who had the capability to disregard spirit and dermic weapons, planting them in diversionary tombs to confuse outsiders. After hesitating for a moment, Little Fatty decided on revealing the truth. This mighty figure was even the titular disciple of Tomb Sect in the past. Ah? Su Zimo was alarmed. The old monk in the old temple had once warned him that apart from legacy disciples, the strongest successors of the super sects were the titular disciples. Furthermore, there could only be a single titular disciple. They were the elites among the legacy disciples of the sect. In order to become the titular disciple of a sect, one has to defeat all the other paragons. In the fiend sects, that was a path that was paved with fresh blood and corpses. A single person's success came from the corpses of many others. A titular disciple was a peerless paragon. Titular disciples were the faces of the super sects and ruled over the world. Their statuses in the sects were extraordinary, and they could command all the disciples in the sect. In fact, their status was even greater than most of the elders in the sect. At this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo had only encountered a true titular disciple, the Azura, Yen Baichen. Upon recollection of Yen Baichen's methods in the battle at Ethereal Peak, it was obvious how strong titular disciples were. In that generation, Yen Baichen was even the number one of the Golden Core Phenomenon ranking. As a titular disciple of Tomb Sect in the past, this mighty figure must have been a glorious and peerless elite who roamed Tianhuang mainland in the past and looked down on the rest of the world. Little Fatty lamented, "Unfortunately, this senior was unable to advance to the Mahayana realm and was eventually buried here." The Mahayana realm came after the conjoint body realm. For humans, there was an ancient saying, "One is unable to comprehend divine powers until they enter the Mahayana realm." In other words, as long as one advanced to the Mahayana realm, they could comprehend divine powers. Dermic powers were boundless, but divine powers were vast. Even for conjoint body mighty figures, they were not free from the shackles of heaven and earth and still had to utilize dermic powers and arts. However, dermic powers were no match for divine powers. In the cultivation world, spirit energy was weaker than dermic powers and dermic powers were weaker than divine powers. What were divine powers? They were incredible and beyond imagination. These were abilities to reach the firmaments that were beyond godly. Divine powers came after one broke free of the shackles of heaven and earth and were at an even more terrifying level. In the old temple, there was a saying in one of the ancient books describing the means of a Mahayana patriarch. Mahayana was indestructible and could be reborn through a drop of blood. This meant that experts of the Mahayana were almost completely indestructible. Even if their bodies were destroyed and their limbs were snapped, a single drop of blood would suffice for them to recover to their original selves. Those methods were truly unimaginable and sought after by many. Only at that cultivation realm can one be barely worthy of the title immortal. With a deeper understanding of the path of cultivation and the cultivation world, Su Zimo could understand what Dayu said in the past. What kind of immortals are Chi Refinement Warrior considered as? Even the Golden Core dare not be so impudent to call themselves immortal. Even the titular disciple of Tomb Sect could not make the step forward and passed on before the Mahayana realm. It was imaginable how horrifying that realm was. Little Fatty said, "Boss, I'm not going to hide it from you. The reason why I entered the ancient battlefield this time round was because of a test left for us by our sect." Test? Su Zimo raised his brow slightly and asked, "You guys?" "Yes." Little Fatty nodded. The senior carried with him an utmost treasure of the sect that was lost after he disappeared. That remained the case until dozens of years ago when our sect master beseeched experts of Enigma Palace for help. At that point, they divined roughly that the senior may have passed on and was buried in the intermediate ancient battlefield. Su Zimo understood. "So, the test for you by the sect is to locate the tomb and retrieve the utmost treasure?" "That's right." Little Fatty replied, "This utmost treasure belonged to the Underworld Emperor and is extremely important to the sect. The reason why my Yellow Springs phenomenon isn't strong is also because of the loss of this utmost treasure." "I see." Suddenly, Su Zimo was enlightened. When he saw Little Fatty release the Yellow Springs phenomenon earlier on, he already had the feeling that the true power of the phenomenon was not unleashed completely. The true Yellow Springs phenomenon could definitely be ranked within the top 20 of the phenomenon ranking. Little Fatty continued, "However, this test wasn't for me alone. There's another senior brother of mine. Whoever gets their hands on this utmost treasure of the sect first will be qualified to become the titular disciple of Tomb Sect for this generation." Su Zimo realized what was happening. The test for Little Fatty from Tomb Sect was not only to locate the tomb and the belonging of the Underworld Emperor, but also to do it before someone else. This test would determine Little Fatty's future. Su Zimo asked, "You can receive help from others?" "Of course." Little Fatty nodded. Su Zimo urged, "Let's not waste time then. Hurry, lead the way." Little Fatty wanted to speak but did not. He did not move immediately as well. "What's wrong?" Su Zimo was confused. With a hesitant expression, Little Fatty said, "That senior brother of mine grew up in Tomb Sect. He even traveled in the Middle Continent once and has deep connections, befriending disciples of super sections. I'm sure he will get some of them to help him for this." "Boss, you..." Little Fatty did not continue, but Su Zimo understood. Little Fatty was worried about him. He already had a grudge with Glass Palace. If he were to offend another few super sects because of this matter, it would be equivalent to seeking death. "It's nothing." Su Zimo smiled casually and patted Little Fatty on the shoulder, saying in a leisurely manner, "I'm not afraid. What are you worried about?" "But..." Su Zimo interrupted with a laugh. "Don't forget, if you're thinking that I might offend them, I've already offended all the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend sects beneath the human emperor's palace 20 years ago." "Boss?" Little Fatty's eyes brimmed with tears emotionally. After all, he had arrived in Tomb Sect later on. When they heard that he was going to compete with that senior brother for the utmost treasure, none of his fellow sect mates, including some seniors, stood on his side. He did not know many people in the cultivation world either. After entering the ancient battlefield, Little Fatty's senior brother gave him a savage warning before leaving to seek super sects to back him up. However, Little Fatty was left all alone and helpless. It would be a lie to say that Little Fatty hadn't been suffering all these years. However, He knew that he could only endure no matter how much he suffered. The more he could endure, the greater his future accomplishments would be. Right now, when he heard Su Zimo's words, little Fatty's heart was filled with warmth. He sniffled and mumbled to himself, "I've also got my boss helping me. Lungming, we'll see if you can still bully me now." Chapter 682, Astral Dragon Sputum Lair. Chapter 682, Astral Dragon Sputum Lair. "Fatty, I'm here too," Shi Jian said with a silly smile. "Although I'm not as strong, I'll also help you for sure." "Brother Fatty, we'll help you too." Little Fox was a sentimental person to begin with. At that moment, she raised her furry paws and cheered little Fatty on. Her voice was cute and extremely soothing. During this period of time, she traveled with Su Zimo and witnessed many things in the world. She was no longer as shy and cowardly as before and had become much more lively. Su Zimo chuckled. "Fatty, if you don't mind, the 7 of us brothers will stand by your side." "Boss, what are you talking about?" Little Fatty rolled up his sleeves and rubbed away his tears hastily. He patted his chest soundly with his fat palm and declared, "Boss, other than that utmost treasure of the sect, you guys can have every other treasure in the tomb. There's no need for that. After all, these are items of tomb sect." Su Zimo shook his head. "You must take them all." Little Fatty's eyes widened, and he turned serious. "We might encounter a lot of danger along the way, and there will definitely be a massacre if we come across Longming. You guys deserve all the treasures in the tomb." Longming was Little Fatty's senior brother. Through Little Fatty's words, it could be seen that the two of them were not on good terms. Su Zimo remained silent. This was the tomb of a conjoint body mighty figure. Furthermore, this conjoint body mighty figure was once a titular disciple. All the treasures in the tomb were definitely extremely rare. If the dozens of diversionary tombs outside were enough to fuel everyone's greed, how could there be a lack of amazing treasures in the actual tomb? When he saw how Su Zimo was still hesitant, Little Fatty almost got angry. "Boss, don't decline any further. I'm sure Longming promised treasures inside the tomb to the Super Sect disciples that he sought help from. For the two of us, the true treasure we have to get our hands on is that utmost treasure of our sect." "All right." Su Zimo nodded. "If I come across something suitable for me, I'll take it." "That's settled then. Let's go." Little Fatty cheered and withdrew a circular geomantic compass. The geomantic compass was filled with countless circles with stars, the 5 elements and yin and yang. It was as though it contained endless secrets. Little Fatty followed the geomantic compass and verified the way before pointing to the southeast direction. "That way." Su Zimo and the rest followed closely behind. After speeding for close to an hour, Little Fatty suddenly stopped and looked to the geomantic compass again. After a moment, he pointed in another direction. "This way." Su Zimo and the others had no objection. Although he was strong in combat, he knew nothing in this regard. Everyone had their specialties. In terms of sense of direction, Su Zimo could not compare to Little Fatty. In terms of controlling puppets and multitasking, he could not compare to Shi Jian either. Shi Jian was honest and not very sharp. In fact, he was a little slow. However, he was appreciated by one of the 5 heretical doctrines, Puppet Sect, and taken in as their disciple. In the past, Su Zimo doubted their decision for a moment. He wondered why Puppet Sect took to Shi Jian. However, during this journey, Shi Jian cleared that doubt of his. One had to be able to multitask if they wanted to cultivate the art of controlling puppets. When a person is too sharp and articulate, it's difficult for them to multitask. Shi Jian did not have Su Zimo try his hand on multitasking 5 things at one go, merely 2. He tried to have Su Zimo draw a circle and square on the ground at the same time. However, Su Zimo could not do it no matter how many times he tried and could only chuckle in exasperation. Although he was the strongest monster incarnate in history, it did not mean that he was good at everything. When Little Fatty was looking for the actual tomb, he was not smiling. Instead, he looked extremely serious. Under Little Fatty's lead, The group of them traveled through vast plains, deserts, swamps, mountains, and forests. At times, they headed east. At times, they went north. The direction was never fixed and always changed. As Little Fatty expected, they encountered many more cave abodes along the way. There were at least 10 of them. There were many cultivators fighting around all those tombs. That's the power of a mighty figure from Tomb Sect. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. The terrain is so complicated, and there are countless diversionary tombs. Unless it was by accident, no one would be able to locate his tomb. However, on second thought, Su Zimo understood the reason for it as well. The tomb should have been prepared by the mighty figure for the successors of Tomb Sect. Only successors of Tomb Sect would be able to distinguish and locate the actual tomb among the diversionary tombs. In the blink of an eye, 6 hours passed. It was already late at night. The group of them did not rest at all, traveling with twists and turns for a long time. Although the journey was long, in actual fact, they had not left the region. Up ahead, Little Fatty suddenly stopped and looked at the geomantic compass with a deep, pensive expression. What's wrong? When he saw Little Fatty stop for a long time, Su Zimo could not help but head up and ask. We're lost? Little Fatty looked a little helpless and dazed. Ah! Everyone was stunned. If even Little Fatty was lost, the rest of them had even less idea of what to do. Su Zimo took a look at the geomantic compass in Little Fatty's hands. Initially, there was a magnetic needle indicating the direction on the geomantic compass. But now, the magnetic needle had gone crazy and was spinning wildly on the geomantic compass. They could not even identify where they were at currently, let alone locate the tomb. Su Zimo asked with a frown, what happened to the geomantic compass? I have no idea as well. Little Fatty said with a vexed expression, it suddenly became like this when we arrived here. The moment he said that, Little Fatty's eyes lit up as he exchanged glances with Su Zimo. The both of them blurted almost at the same time. The tomb is here. Everyone looked down. Not far away, there was a verdant mountain peak, and they were surrounded by greenery as well. There was also a small lake not far away with a little beast drinking water at the moment. Everything looked serene and peaceful. Although they deduced that the tomb was around here, nobody knew its exact location. The spirit tiger said loudly, since the tomb is here, let's smash the ground together. Sooner or later, we'll dig out a hole. No, we can't. Su Zimo shook his head. Although this region is not humongous, it's not that small either. There's no way of finding out how deep the tomb lies. How long are we going to dig for? That's right. The commotion will most likely attract countless cultivators before we even locate the tomb. Ching Ching nodded in agreement. We must not do that. Little Fatty said with a solemn expression. There must be many seals set up around this senior's tomb. If we try to break through them forcefully, the seals might injure us instead. The spirit tiger shuddered when he heard that and no longer dared to offer any suggestions. If they triggered the seal of a conjoint body mighty figure, they might not survive even if they had 10 lives. Little Fatty looked up into the skies and his eyes flashed with a gradual realization. I've got it. A moment later, he leaped up in joy. This is the legendary Astral Dragon Sputum Lair. Chapter 683, Utterly Shameless. Chapter 683, Utterly Shameless. Shi Jian asked with curiosity, what's the Astral Dragon Sputum Lair? Little Fatty beamed widely and became more excited the more he thought about it. It's a burial method from the ancient era that has been lost for a long time. To think that this senior would have set it up. Gradually, Little Fatty calmed down from his excitement and asked, do you guys remember the dozens of diversionary cave abodes we came across? Everyone nodded. Little Fatty chuckled. Although those dozens of diversionary cave abodes were merely distractions, they are in fact a large part of this tomb's formation. Or rather, they are the key to locating the tomb. These dozens of diversionary tombs align to dozens of stars up in the skies. Although they seem messy, they form the network of a dragon's veins. This is the dragon vein that is mentioned by Tomb Sect. There were two types of dragon veins. The first was made by nature, and the second was man-made. A dragon vein can be used to gather fortune as well as alter feng shui. It is extremely mysterious, and it's almost impossibly difficult for anyone to create a man-made dragon vein. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to identify a dragon vein. However, legacy disciples of Tomb Sect could sense the presence of a dragon vein and can even make use of its power to kill their opponents. It was incredibly amazing. Everyone followed Little Fatty's gaze and looked upwards. Right now, the skies were dark. Stars dotted the heavens. Above the region they were at, dozens of stars shone with a particular brightness, flickering in tandem with the dozens of diversionary tombs on the surface as though they had a mysterious connection. Although the stars seemed like they were in a chaotic order, if one were to connect them through a particular order, the shape of a dragon vein could be seen. A dragon's tail, claws, head, body, everything was present. Su Zimo closed his eyes and was able to visualize a gigantic dragon with magnificent horns hovering in the firmaments, looking down at the world with a cold indifference. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt a sensation in his body and his blood chi surged, as though it was resonating in a faint manner with the gigantic dragon up in the firmaments. He shuddered and opened his eyes. That feeling went as quickly as it came. Su Zimo did not think too much about it, and merely assumed that it was a change brought along with his cultivation of the ancient dragonification art. After pondering for a long time, Little Fatty blurted as though he thought of something, "I've got it." "What?" Everyone turned to him with curious looks in their eyes. He said slowly, "The reason why this tomb has been buried for such a long time and only appeared now was because this dragon vein was only just formed. Dragon veins are almost entirely made by nature. It's not so easy making one artificially." This senior of Tomb Sect laid down the astral dragon Sputum Lair to connect heaven and earth, drawing in the power of the stars into this place so as to gather fortune from the universe to form the dragon vein. Eventually, the dragon vein was finally formed in this era. Shi Jin could not help but ask, "When did that senior pass on?" Little Fatty replied darkly, "At least dozens of thousands of years ago." "Ah?" Everyone was dumbfounded with shock in their eyes. "That's incredible." Su Zimo lamented internally, secretly in awe. Using an ancient secret skill to connect the heaven and earth in order to form a dragon vein and pass down a legacy after dozens of thousands of years. Although this mighty figure of Tomb Sect did not manage to advance to the Mahayana realm, his methods could be considered as divinely. "Brother Fatty, what did you mean by the dragon Sputum Lair?" Little Fox blinked her large, clear eyes and asked curiously. The spirit tiger urged as well, "Fatty, so where is the entrance to the tomb after everything you said?" He was anxious to enter the tomb and see if he could get a few treasures. Noticing the spirit tiger's intentions, Ching Ching glared at him with a warning look. Su Zimo smiled gently. After all, Ching Ching had been an ethereal peak for a long time and knew more about manners. While Little Fatty made the promise that they could take anything they wanted from the treasures in the tomb, this was still a tomb of a mighty figure of Tomb Sect after all. It would be greedy of them if they were to just stuff anything they saw that was good into their storage bags. Furthermore, none of them knew the situation within the tomb right now. With his intentions seen through, the spirit tiger looked embarrassed and coughed gently to hide his awkwardness. Little Fatty pointed to the lake not far away. "If I'm not wrong, the entrance to the tomb is that lake." "Beneath the lake?" the golden lion asked with disbelief. The lake looked unassuming with dirty waters. There was nothing special about it. Little Fatty pointed up into the skies. "Check out the direction of the dragon vein." Everyone raised their heads. Little Fatty continued, "That's the dragon's tail, and that's the dragon's body. When we continue up, the dozens of stars that are clustered together more tightly form the dragon's head. At the lower end of the head is the mouth where sputum is produced. This lake corresponds to the dragon's sputum directly." Everyone was enlightened. Jian was the only one who shook his head with a confused expression. I'm still unable to understand. I'll just tag along with you guys. Follow me. Little Fatty waved and pointed to the lake not far away, leading the way. When they approached the lake, everyone started noticing something unusual. The surface of the lake was cold and ghastly. Little Fox could not help but shudder. She hid behind Su Zimo and secretly tugged his sleeves. Su Zimo glanced sideways. Little Fox looked up, revealing her tender neck as she gazed at him with widened, pitiable eyes. Although she was clearly afraid, she bit her cherry lips and did not say anything. Su Zimo let out a smile. He naturally knew what was on Little Fox's mind. Come on in, but just this once. Su Zimo smiled and nodded. Little Fox snickered and transformed into her true form. A fiery red fox waved its furry tail and climbed up Su Zimo's leg into his embrace in an experienced manner. She only stuck her petite head outside, blinking her huge eyes in a beautiful manner. The moment she scurried into Su Zimo's embrace, she felt a sense of warmth. The chilling aura of the lake vanished instantly. Su Zimo's body was like a gigantic cauldron that was warm. She almost wanted to take a nap if they weren't about to enter the tomb. When he saw that, the spirit tiger's eyes darted as a thought struck his mind. Puffing his chest, he walked beside Qing Qing and declared courageously, Qing Qing, don't be afraid. Hu Beishan's chest will warm you up. Hurry and come scurry in too. As he said that, the spirit tiger bared his chest and revealed chest hair with rows of black and yellow. Monkey rolled its eyes. Little Fox exclaimed and chuckled. Fuck, is this guy for real? The golden lion frowned and his jaws nearly dropped to the floor. Qing Qing's face was steely dark as she clenched her fists, snarling, get lost. The spirit tiger scratched his head and his naughty eyes darted towards Qing Qing's puffed-up chest, muttering, Qing Qing, it's fine if you don't like this. How about you bare your chest for me to scurry inside instead? Silence overwhelmed their surroundings. The golden lion roared internally. I've never seen anyone so utterly shameless before. Without a second word, Qing Qing raised her legs and kicked the spirit tiger viciously on the bum. Thud. The spirit tiger was instantly sent flying into the lake, looking extremely wretched. Everyone roared in laughter. The eerie atmosphere from earlier on lightened significantly as well. Little Fatty waved his arm. Come, let's head in too. Chapter 684, Ancient Frost Crocodile. Chapter 684, Ancient Frost Crocodile. All of them were golden cores. After entering the water, Monkey and the others circulated their inner cores and released demonic chi, forming light barriers around them to keep the lake water out. Little Fatty and Jian released spirit energy to form a barrier so that they could breathe with ease as well. It was dark beneath the lake. The lake water was extremely dirty. Although Su Zimo's eyes were sharp, they could not see through material obstructions. His vision right now was not great either, with the filth in the water blocking his sights. Su Zimo was extremely cautious and looked on keenly while twitching his ears, not daring to be careless. Although they had verified the location of the tomb, nobody knew what was in the lake. This dimension of the ancient battlefield had existed for a long time, and it would not be surprising if any monster was born in that ghastly lake. Furthermore, up till now, they had not found any traces of Long Ming, Little Fatty's senior brother. Nobody knew if he had arrived here before them. With Little Fox in Su Zimo's embrace, the remaining 7 of them formed a circle with Qing Qing in the middle before sinking gradually. The water was cold when they just entered. However, everyone's cultivation realm was high, and they could endure it. The deeper they dove, the colder the water became. In fact, it was so chilling that it showed signs of penetrating the demonic chi and spirit energy barriers. Not only that, the water pressure in the surrounding intensified the deeper they went. Right now, apart from Su Zimo, even Monkey experienced waves of pressure and difficulties in breathing. This lake seems unassuming, but it's actually so deep. The spirit tiger was secretly shocked. Frowning, Monkey asked, "How deep are we now?" Su Zimo said darkly, "We're more than 3,000 feet down now." That meant that they were a kilometer down. The pressure of the water a kilometer down was shockingly strong. Ordinary golden cores would die bleeding from all orifices by the time they reached this point. Furthermore, there was a piercing chill everywhere in the water. The spirit tiger lamented with relief internally. If they had smashed the ground as he had suggested, they would have found this place even if they spent an entire year smashing. The water was dirty and it was pitch black underneath, resembling an eerie, endless abyss that was waiting for them to jump in on their own accord. The surrounding pressure was intensifying. Apart from Su Zimo, who could still maintain his composure, the demonic chi and spirit energy around everyone else had started shrinking. The Golden Lion was a little worried. Where would be the end if they continued as such? Even Su Zimo would not be able to withstand it if they sank another kilometer down and explode to death. How much further is it? The Golden Lion panted with breathing difficulties. Su Zimo shook his head. Even his senses were suppressed firmly given the environment. He said deeply, "If we still don't reach the bottom of the lake a while longer, you guys can head up first. I'll continue alone to check things out." Little Fatty waved it off with his forehead filled with sweat. Already unable to speak, he patted his storage bag and withdrew an azure bead. The bead was the size of an infant's fist and swirled with an azure current, illuminating a beautiful glow. The moment that bead was taken out, it emanated a mysterious energy that pushed away the water around the 9 of them, forming an azure barrier of light with a huge space that could fit dozens of people. The light barrier did not only suppress the pressure of the water, but also filtered more than half of the chilling aura in the water. Everyone was invigorated and heaved a breath of relief instinctively. Su Zimo's eyes lit up. Anti-water bead. Anti-water beads were mostly refined from the inner cores of river or ocean demons. The fact that this anti-water bead could have the strength to create such a huge barrier a kilometer down meant that it was definitely made from the inner core of an ocean demon. It was extremely hard for cultivators that lived on land to obtain the inner cores of ocean demons. In Tianhuang mainland, there were 3 deep oceans with a myriad of demon races in them. Coupled with the unique environment, most cultivators and demons that lived on land could not enter them with ease. The 3 oceans took up 3 of the 8 demon regions. "Brother Fatty, you're amazing." Little Fox was sprawled in Su Zimo's embrace and stuck her head out, clapping her paws merrily. Shi Jian grumbled, "Why didn't you take out such an amazing treasure earlier? I could barely breathe. A little longer, and I would have fainted." "There's already a crack on this anti-water bead, and it won't last much longer. I can only take it out at the most critical juncture," Little Fatty explained as he wiped the sweat on his forehead. In truth, he had no confidence either. If they did not manage to reach the bottom of the lake by the time the anti-water bead was destroyed, their expedition would be a complete failure. Suddenly, Su Zimo's expression changed as he warned everyone hurriedly, "Watch out." Not far away, the water currents shifted, as though a gargantuan creature was headed towards them. The others were not as sharp as him, and by the time they realized, a massive shadow had already shrouded them. Boom! The shadow clashed against the barrier of the anti-water bead violently, causing everyone to tremble. Instantly, another crack appeared on the anti-water bead. Little Fatty's face turned frightfully pale. If things continued the way it was, it would take less than 10 attacks for the anti-water bead to be destroyed. Everyone turned their gazes over. Outside the light barrier, there was a massive demon beast that was silver-white all over and had a menacing gaze. It emanated a chilling aura and bore sharp teeth that resembled daggers. Ancient frost crocodile. The Golden Lion's expression was terrible. Legend has it that this frost crocodile lives deep in the seas where it's coldest and is extremely violent. They've gone extinct in Tianhuang mainland a long time ago. To think that one of them would be in this lake. The moment he said that, the water on the other side rumbled. Another shadow enveloped them. It was another ancient frost crocodile. In less than 3 breaths, 2 ancient frost crocodiles could shatter the barrier of the anti-water bead. "You guys take care. I'll head out. Su Zimo had a cold expression, and with that said, he darted out of the anti-water beads barrier in a flash. At that moment, they were a kilometer deep in the water. Notwithstanding the piercing, chilling aura of the lake, the pressure alone could kill most living beings. The reason why the ancient frost crocodiles could move about so freely at this depth was because they were not weak, and at the same time, this was the place they first lived in. Their bodies were formed after countless years of evolution, and they had long adapted to their surroundings. At that moment, Monkey and the others could not leave the protection of the anti-water bead and could only look at everything from within the barrier. The inner core in Su Zimo's chest circulated wildly, and his blood chi surged with a terrifying might. Even the water in the surroundings was affected. OM. Before his sentence was finished, a blood-colored saber had already appeared in Su Zimo's hands. Blood Quencher trembled and shone brightly, bursting forth with a massive blood beam. In the lake, Su Zimo wielded Blood Quencher, and his black hair danced while his eyes shone brightly. A rumbling demonic chi surged out of his nose and mouth. Even against the crushing waters of the lake, he was unyielding like an unquestionable divine being. As though they were agitated, the two ancient frost crocodiles roared in rage and abandoned the anti-water bead before them, charging towards Su Zimo instead. Chapter 685, Boiling Water. Chapter 685, Boiling Water. The two ancient frost crocodiles seemed to be able to sense the strength of Su Zimo the intruder, and they did not hold back, releasing their inner cores immediately. Instantly, the temperature of the lake dipped. The inner core was like an ice cube shrouded with thick, demonic chi, emitting an endless frost. The chilling aura shot over, and a layer of frost formed over Su Zimo's body. In the blink of an eye, ice crystals extended from his limbs to his entire body and finally his head. They covered everything and stacked layer over layer thickly. The chilling aura was so intense, ferocious and terrifying that it froze the demonic chi Su Zimo conjured around his surroundings. Everyone in the barrier of the anti-water bead became nervous. Although they were protected by the barrier, they could sense the chilling aura. Given the environment, any external living beings that arrived at this extremely cold place, no matter if they were cultivators, demon beasts of land, or the deep oceans, their combat strength would be diminished. It would be considered good if they could even retain half of their original combat strength. As for ancient frost crocodiles, because they lived here, they could unleash their maximum potential. Given the severe disadvantages he faced, everyone was not confident whether Su Zimo could defend against the attacks of the two ancient frost crocodiles. One of the ancient frost crocodiles swiped its tail. Although it had a massive body, it was unusually agile in the lake with a shocking speed, and it arrived before Su Zimo instantly. Crack, crack, crack. Suddenly, cracking sounds echoed from within Su Zimo's body. Cracks started appearing on that humanoid ice statue. Boom! Immediately after, there was an explosion. Right in front of Monkey and the others, a huge figure burst forth from the ice crystals and soared into the skies. His tendons and bones echoed at the same time, and his blood chi soared. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's body expanded to a height of 100 feet and his black hair danced. In the dirty lake waters, his eyes were frighteningly bright, and he resembled a towering divine being. The two ancient frost crocodiles were much stronger than Su Zimo had imagined. When he circulated his inner core, his blood chi surged and his body was like a cauldron. Despite that, the two ancient frost crocodiles could freeze him. Right now, he was no longer holding back, and the power of his blood chi and inner core was released entirely. Swash! Su Zimo gripped Blood Quencher, tightly glared at the ancient frost crocodile that was charging towards him before slashing forward. A series of ripples spread through the lake. Although they seemed gentle, they possessed a terrifying killing intent. The ancient frost crocodile was smart. When it saw that it was unable to dodge in time, it channeled the power of its inner core wildly and formed an invisible ice wall before itself. Crack! The ripples struck the ice wall. Immediately after, another ice wall rose. The ice wall thickened continuously. Continuing forward, the ripples shattered ice wall after ice wall. Finally, at the 7th ice wall, the power released by the slash was completely dissipated. Not bad. Suzimo nodded with a flash of surprise in his eyes. The ripple stance was a saber stance created by the Saber Emperor. That slash possessed the power of force and was something that most demon beasts wouldn't be able to defend against. However, it was clear that the ancient frost crocodile was rather capable since it could go unscathed against the ripple stance. Another ancient frost crocodile seized the opportunity to rush forward murderously. Slash! Suzimo stood where he was motionlessly and attacked once more. Swoosh! Countercurrent was released. In that lake, not only would there be no sluggishness in the saber stances of the Sea Calming Manual, they could even be released to their full potential. Countercurrent was the stance with the greatest power in the Sea Calming Manual. Against that slash, the ancient frost crocodile did not dodge or avoid at all. Instead, it lunged forward and spat out its chilling inner core in front of itself. Clang! The demonic chi released by the inner core formed a shield of ice. When Blood Quencher struck the shield exploded instantly. It could not defend against the sharpness of Blood Quencher and the power of Countercurrent. The inner core was repelled. It dimmed significantly as the ancient frost crocodile devoured it back into its stomach. Blood Quencher descended. The eyes of the ancient frost crocodile were extremely calm without any trace of panic, as though it had already expected everything. It opened its mouth and bit Blood Quencher head-on. This ancient frost crocodile chose to take on a Khanate spirit weapon head-on. Suzimo's gaze turned cold and the blood beam on his saber intensified. Crack, crack, crack. That single slash severed close to 100 of the ancient frost crocodile's sharp teeth. The remaining few hundred teeth were loosened as well as blood seeped out from its mouth, dyeing the lake waters red. However, the ancient frost crocodile's mouth was lined with sharp fangs that crossed in a zigzag manner like a valley of swords. The depletion of the power of Suzimo's slash caused Blood Quencher to be jammed in that mouth of sharp fangs. Watch out! Ching Ching and the others yelled nervously and pointed to Suzimo's back from within the anti-water bead barrier. A dark shadow blanketed over Suzimo's head. Behind him, another ancient frost crocodile surged over with a widened mouth, devouring Suzimo, who was 100 feet tall, in a single mouthful. At that moment, Suzimo finally understood why the ancient frost crocodile at the start wanted to take his attack head-on. Both ancient frost crocodiles sensed his strength, and one of them wanted to open up an opportunity for its partner regardless of how severely it would get injured. "Boss! Brother Su!" Little Fatty and Jian yelled, and in a moment of impulse, wanted to charge out of the anti-water bead barrier. "Don't go out first." A tall figure blocked the two of them. He glared at the ancient frost crocodile outside with a flickering scarlet glint and said in a deep, hoarse voice. Monkey said, "Let's wait first." Among the group, Monkey and the Spirit Tiger had been through many fights with Suzimo in the ancient battlefield and understood his strength best. Although Little Fatty and Jian had not seen Suzimo for many years, their impression of him was the same as it was 20 years ago. In the lake. After devouring Suzimo, the ancient frost crocodile floated in its original spot quietly and motionlessly, as though it was trying to feel something. A moment later, it suddenly opened its mouth and let out a tragic shriek. Its eyes were filled with endless pain. Right in front of everyone, the water current that flowed out of the ancient frost crocodile's mouth burned with a thin layer of flames. Swish! A blazing flame ignited from within the ancient frost crocodile's body and covered it instantly, turning that massive body transparent from the heat. Within the ancient frost crocodile's body, a faint figure of a dragon-like gigantic beast could be seen, spreading its wings and roaring into the skies with lava gushing out of its mouth. "Ah!" Little Fatty came to a realization and yelled, "That's the legendary primordial soaring serpent." "Not bad." Monkey and the others nodded. The ancient frost crocodile belonged to the extreme end of the cold spectrum, while the soaring serpent was a divine being of the flames and belonged on the extreme end of the heat spectrum. The difference between cold and hot produced an intense reaction in the ancient frost crocodile's body that resulted in a destructive power. In less than a few breaths, the frost crocodile's life was wiped away entirely. Su Zimo broke out with a phantom of the primordial Su Zimo behind his back, standing among the blazing flames with a torrential aura. The lake water that was initially piercingly cold had already started to bubble with heat. The lake was now boiling. Eternal Sacred King. Chapter 686, 9 Palace Diagram. Chapter 686, 9 Palace Diagram. Little Fatty and Shi Jin's eyes widened with disbelief. Those means were far from the legendary divine powers of being able to incinerate the heavens and boiling the oceans. At best, it could only be boiling a lake. However, the visual impact caused by the scene was way too shocking. Fear filled the eyes of the other ancient frost crocodile, and it turned to flee. Go! Su Zimo raised his arm and pointed forward. The primordial soaring serpent behind him spread its wings and tore through the layers of waves, causing the lake to bubble and boil everywhere it passed. Almost instantly, the soaring serpent arrived above the ancient frost crocodile and devoured it in a single mouthful. Swoosh! The ancient frost crocodile struggled and howled miserably within the stomach of the soaring serpent, causing endless flames to surge inside and outside of the latter's body. Before long, it was burned into ashes that scattered across the lake. No matter how violent the ancient frost crocodile was or how strong of a bloodline it possessed, it could not do anything against the presence of a primordial soaring serpent. The soaring serpent was a divine being of the flames. Back in the primordial era, it would even dare to roam the deep oceans, let alone a puny lake as such. Everyone in the anti-water beads barrier heaved a sigh of relief. Without the threat of the ancient frost crocodile, the anti-water bead could still hold out for a period of time. Suddenly, something moved in water currents in the depths of the lake. Everyone in the anti-water bead was unnerved once again, gazing around with widened eyes. It was as though their dive into the lake had alerted a certain life form within it. The movement intensified and came from all directions. However, the strange thing was that no matter how they tried, they could not detect any signs of life. All they could see was the water currents surging towards the anti-water bead barrier. Su Zimo's spirit perception was strong, and he had naturally noticed danger a long time ago. However, even with his powerful vision, he could not identify the origin of that danger. Psst! Psst! The primordial soaring serpent reared its head and hissed, surveying the surroundings with its cold eyes in a warning manner. Swoosh! Opening its mouth, the primordial soaring serpent spewed out scorching lava that surged into the waters. Squeak, squeak! Suddenly, a strange sound could be heard from the waters in front of them, as though some living being was screeching. Su Zimo focused his gaze. Within the lake, there were countless thick and thin arms that came from long fish demons who were howling and screaming. Their gaping mouths were lined with sharp teeth that shimmered with a cold glint. The bodies of those fish demons were almost transparent, and it was difficult to identify them as they moved through the water. If not for the scarlet lava blazing on their bodies, even Su Zimo would have difficulties identifying their existences. Bloodthirsty silverfishes. Su Zimo was alarmed. Bloodthirsty silverfishes and the soaring serpent were both beings of the primordial era. The former was violent, bloodthirsty, and chewed through every single thing they came across. They were ferocious beasts that were irrational and showed no fear. The most frightening thing was that bloodthirsty silverfishes moved in schools. At any moment, hundreds or thousands of bloodthirsty silverfishes could appear. Life was devoid everywhere they passed, leaving nothing but corpses in their wake. Even a perfect spirit weapon would be shredded into shards by the bloodthirsty silverfishes, let alone bodies of flesh. In the deep oceans back in the primordial era, even the strongest demons within would stay away when they encountered bloodthirsty silverfishes. Su Zimo had not expected that he would lure out these bloodthirsty things after summoning the primordial soaring serpent. In the eyes of the bloodthirsty silverfishes, it did not matter if they were facing the soaring serpent or divine turtle. They lunged at everything that showed signs of life. Squeak, squeak. Many bloodthirsty silverfishes were burned to death by the lava the soaring serpent spewed. However, many more bloodthirsty silverfishes surged forward and gnawed at Su Zimo's golden core phenomenon relentlessly. A small portion of the bloodthirsty silverfishes swam to where Monkey and the others were and started attacking the barrier of the anti-water bead. The barrier showed signs of dissipation. Another crack appeared on the anti-water bead. Su Zimo channeled his spirit energy to control his golden core phenomenon, purging away the bloodthirsty silverfishes nearby the anti-water bead as he shouted, "Hurry and head down. The bottom of the lake is right below. See if you can locate the entrance of the tomb." During his fight with the ancient frost crocodile earlier on, Su Zimo's body expanded to a height of 100 feet, and his feet touched the bottom of the lake. That was how he knew they were close. Everyone's eyes lit up and hope reignited in their hearts. Buzz, buzz. More bloodthirsty silverfishes surged forward and chewed at Su Zimo's golden core phenomenon. The glow of the primordial soaring serpent had already started to diminish. The golden core phenomenon was on the verge of dissipating. After all, this was a phenomenon created by spirit energy and was not the true body of the soaring serpent. Even the soaring serpent phenomenon was showing signs of defeat against the relentless bites of the bloodthirsty silverfishes. "I see it." Right then, Little Fatty's voice echoed excitedly from the bottom of the lake. On the west of the bottom of the lake, there was an obvious semicircular entrance to the tomb with a width 20 feet apart and height 50 feet tall. Although tens of thousands of years had passed, it still looked extremely majestic. Little Fatty maneuvered the anti-water bead and advanced towards the tomb. There was a gigantic stone door at the tomb's entrance with no handle on it. "Let me try and lift this stone door up," the spirit tiger declared bravely. Ching Ching glared at the spirit tiger and scolded, "Stand at the side. Don't interfere blindly if you don't wish to die." With that, Ching Ching turned to look at Little Fatty. The spirit tiger glanced over instinctively as well. Little Fatty was standing on the spot, glaring at the ground on the tomb's entrance motionlessly as though he was in a trance. He had a grim expression that did not look good. A lattice diagram was etched on the ground at the entrance of the tomb with 9 identical squares. It looked extremely mysterious. The spirit tiger felt a sense of trepidation. It was obviously a seal that was left behind by the owner of the tomb. If he had barged in forcefully earlier on, he might have already triggered the seal and died on the spot. "Don't worry, I'll hold back these silverfishes. Hurry and try to dispel it as soon as possible." Su Zimo's back was facing the group as he fought against the bloodthirsty silverfishes before him, trying his best to fight for time for Little Fatty. Little Fatty's gaze shimmered with a wise look in his eyes. His brains were churning furiously. Although the diagram before them seemed simple with only 9 squares, an immense amount of calculation was required if they wanted to dispel the seal of the Tomb Master. This 9-palace diagram originated from the legendary river diagram. The river diagram was one of the most mysterious treasures of the primordial era. Some people managed to comprehend cultivation techniques from the river diagram. Some managed to comprehend secret skills while others managed to comprehend formation techniques. Rumor has it that the river diagram contained the mysteries of the universe and the absolute truth of heaven and earth. No matter what, anyone could comprehend something just by taking a look at the river diagram. Time slowly passed. Su Zimo fought against the bloodthirsty silverfishes single-handedly. The primordial soaring serpent phenomenon had already cracked against the fanatic attacks of the bloodthirsty silverfishes and could disperse at any moment. At the back, Little Fatty was frowning in deep thought, squeezing his brain juices at every single second. Nobody could help them. Finally, it worked. Little Fatty's eyes lit up. He lifted his foot and stepped on the 9-palace diagram, confident in every step he took. That seemingly clumsy and fat body of his was extremely light-footed on the nine-palace diagram. He tapped left and right, front and back swiftly in a dizzying manner, looking messy and unorganized. "Open!" Little Fatty shouted with his final step. Bang! Boom! Boom! The stone door rose accompanied by a massive explosion. Chapter 687, First to Arrive. Chapter 687, First to Arrive. There seemed to be a mysterious energy within the tomb. Although the entrance was open, the waters of the lake were unable to seep in. "Hurry, let's enter." Little Fatty beckoned and brought everyone in. When he saw that, Zimo did not continue fighting against the bloodthirsty silverfishes either. He withdrew and bolted through the waters like a fish, leaving a stream of ripples in his wake. In the blink of an eye, he had already entered the tomb. Everyone's eyes lit up. Jian could not help but praise, "Brother Su, your combat strength and movement techniques don't seem to be affected even in the waters. Impressive." Zimo was puzzled regarding that as well. Normally speaking, demon beasts or human cultivators of the land would naturally be affected in terms of combat strength and movement technique upon entering water. After all, most demon beasts and cultivators were used to living life on land, and their physical structures and habits were starkly distinct from living beings underwater. It was impossible for them to adapt to a foreign environment underwater. Furthermore, there was water resistance that intensified the deeper they were underwater. However, for some unknown reason, Zimo could not feel that resistance when he was in the waters and adapted almost instantly. His body seemed to be one with the waters around him. It was as though he had grown up living underwater. Of course, that was merely a fleeting thought for Zimo that he did not bother much about. After everyone entered the tomb, the bloodthirsty silverfishes at the back swarmed after them. However, all of them paused in front of the nine-palace diagram with wary expressions and did not dare to advance. After lingering for a moment, the bloodthirsty silverfishes slowly dispersed. Bang! Boom! Boom! Right then, the stone door descended slowly and sealed the tomb once again. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and surveyed their surroundings. They were welcomed with a spacious passage that was huge and grand. A night luminance bead the size of a fist was hung on the walls on both sides, spaced 100 feet apart. The night luminance beads illuminated the entire passage as bright as daylight. "Wow, these are good stuff." The spirit tiger glared at the night luminance beads above his head and almost drooled. "Fatty, you're quite something." Jian thumped Little Fatty on the shoulder and praised, "You've truly learned many things during these years you spent in Tomb Sect." Whether it was his means at locating the tomb or the complex steps he took at the entrance of the tomb earlier, everyone was in awe. If Little Fatty had not led the way, they would have never found this place even if they had 100 years in the ancient battlefield. Even if they managed to find it, they wouldn't have been able to enter. This great opportunity was given to everyone by Little Fatty. "Phoo!" Little Fatty smiled and did not say anything. Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. Something seemed to be wrong with the way Little Fatty was acting. Earlier on at the entrance of the tomb, Little Fatty was already stoned for a long time and had a grim expression when he looked at the nine-palace diagram. Given his character, he should have been cheering a long time ago after they entered the tomb. However, he seemed somewhat dejected at the moment. "What's wrong?" Zimo asked. "Did something happen?" Little Fatty grit his teeth. "We might be late." The moment the spirit tiger heard that, he got anxious and asked, "What do you mean by late?" Little Fatty replied darkly, "Along the way, I did not catch sight of anything suspicious, so I thought that we were the first to enter this place. However, it was clear from the nine-palace diagram at the entrance of the tomb that someone arrived before us." "Ah!" Everyone looked shocked. Little Fatty explained, "Tens of thousands of years have passed, and there should be a thick layer of dust on the ground at the entrance of the tomb. However, from the nine-palace diagram, it's obvious that someone has arrived before us and wiped away the dust on the surface of the ground. Even if he wiped away the dust, he might not have been able to enter this place. The Golden Lion said, "The Nine Palace diagram is extremely complex. There's only a few people in this world that can crack it." At that point, the Golden Lion suddenly went silent. Everyone exchanged glances and a thought crossed their minds. If Little Fatty could locate this place and crack the seal of the Nine Palace diagram, this meant that there was a high chance Little Fatty's senior brother could do the same. Instantly, much of everyone's joy earlier on was erased. If Little Fatty's senior brother had arrived first, he would definitely not leave any treasures for them. The utmost treasure of the tomb would naturally be taken away as well. Ugh! The spirit tiger sighed and murmured dejectedly, "What a wet blanket! We made the trip for nothing." He gazed at the night luminance beads above his head. "How about removing these night luminance beads? We can't possibly leave with nothing." Ching Ching frowned and kicked the spirit tiger for the ladder to shut his mouth. "Your senior brother is definitely rather capable if he managed to arrive first," Su Zimo said darkly. "There was no blood stench or signs of any fights that happened after we entered the lake. This proved that he managed to avoid the detection of the ancient frost crocodile, bloodthirsty silverfishes, and many other extinct life forms to enter this tomb successfully." At that point, a vague thought flickered through Su Zimo's mind. However, he could not figure out what he was thinking about exactly. Little Fatty shook his head. "I know my senior brother very well. Although he's definitely stronger than me in combat, he isn't at the level where he can completely avoid detection from everyone. An expert is definitely helping him out." "Let's go," Su Zimo remarked. "Since we're already here, we've got to head in no matter what. We can't just turn and leave." Little Fatty took a deep breath and nodded. "Boss is right. Let's enter." He walked right at the front so that he could react to any changes. After all, he knew best about the types of traps, seals, and formations in this tomb. Su Zimo followed at the back of the group. The passage was extremely long, and although it was lit up, their surroundings were quiet and eerie with the sounds of their footsteps echoing. Su Zimo looked increasingly grim. He had not let his guard down at all. Little Fatty's senior brother was much scarier than he had imagined. He had not noticed any signs of anyone else's presence in this place along the way. If Little Fatty had not noticed something unusual at the entrance of the tomb, nobody would know that someone else had arrived here. A while later, they finally arrived at the end of the passage and the place opened up. They had arrived at a majestic and spacious chamber. Greenish bronze coffins were placed in all four corners of the chamber, and the place had a morbid aura. The wall on the opposite end of the tomb revealed 16 passages, each dark and creepy without the light from the night luminance beads. Everyone had a vague idea of what the tomb master was up to. The chamber before them was definitely not the main tomb. Only one of the 16 passages led to the right one. If they chose the wrong one, they might never be able to return. Little Fatty stood where he was and calculated for a long time before pointing to the 7th passage from the left. "This way." With that said, he prepared himself to step into the chamber. Su Zimo frowned slightly and said with a grim expression, "There's something odd about this chamber. Everyone, watch out." Chapter 688, Mighty Figure Skeleton. Chapter 688, Mighty Figure Skeleton. Su Zimo's spirit perception was not too useful in that morbid chamber. However, the moment he caught sight of the chamber, he sensed danger that disappeared immediately after. Legend has it that ancient mighty figures had boundless dermic powers, and their means could even conceal heavenly secrets, let alone Su Zimo's spirit perception. "It's fine, follow me." Little Fatty smiled and headed towards the 7th passage. Su Zimo and the rest followed closely behind. The spirit tiger looked around furtively. "Boss Fatty, the 4 coffins look extremely old, and no one has opened them before. Let's go and check out if there's any treasures hidden within." The spirit tiger snickered. "Don't go." Su Zimo shook his head with a fierce gaze. The spirit tiger straightened up immediately after meeting Su Zimo's gaze and no longer dared to entertain those thoughts. Suddenly, a commotion broke out in all four corners of the chamber. Crack, crack, crack. It was piercing and sounded as though the coffin lids were being shifted. Click, clack, click. The next moment, an even creepier sound echoed through the chamber. Everyone subconsciously turned towards the sounds. As though they were moved by someone, the four coffins revealed massive gaps and dense shadows crawled out from within. Like a flood, they swarmed towards everyone at an extremely fast speed. Carrion beetles. Little Fatty could not help but exclaim. The shadows were swarms of carrion beetles. Every single carrion beetle was dark as ink, the size of an adult's palm, and carried heavy shells on their bags. Their 6 scarlet legs danced and were extremely sharp. Although they had no eyes and ears, they could sense everyone's location clearly. Everyone's faces turned pale. The little fox was so scared that she hid in Suzimo's embrace a long time ago and did not dare to look up. "Hurry, let's go," Suzimo shouted. Everyone soared into the air and bolted towards the 7th passage. The carrion beetles soared into the air along with them like black water currents, surging from all directions to seal all the exits. Suzimo was about to attack when he saw Ching Ching turn into her true form. She reared her head and screeched, churning her bloodline as the temperature around her rose rapidly. Opening her mouth, she spewed out green flames in all directions as she turned her head. The green flames formed an impenetrable barrier. Although the carrion beetles were deadly, everything in life had a counter to them. They too had things they were fearful of. They feared the flames of divine beings. The flames that were released through Ching Ching's bloodline were not ordinary flames of the mortal realm. These were flames used by the legendary bird, by Fang, and were comparable to the flames of the Soaring Serpent. The black carrion beetle swarm surged over and stopped instantly against the green barrier as countless carrion beetles screeched miserably in the flames. They fell, struggled, and turned into ashes. Everyone was invigorated. With the flames of the Bai Fang, they could definitely break through the obstruction of the carrion beetles and enter the passage on the opposite end. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, loud explosions reverberated from the four corners of the chamber, and a shuddering aura descended, engulfing every corner of the chamber. Everyone shivered. Against that aura, even the raring flames of the Bai Fang showed signs of extinguishing. So strong. Suzimo took a deep breath. He did not have time to think as he circulated his golden core to its limits immediately to release his phenomenon. Bang! Boom! Boom! The firmament cracked opening as thunder roared and lightning flashed. Countless stars and meteors fell with river currents surging. A massive demon beast descended and suppressed the raging currents with its limbs, protecting everyone beneath it as it held up the broken firmament with its shell. It roared into the skies and its eyes were unyielding. The primordial divine turtle had descended. At the same time, for powerful auras had already torn through the carrion beetles and the flames of the Bai Fang and arrived before everyone. It was 4 sets of skeletons. To be precise, these were 4 skeletons from tens of thousands of years ago. The bones were pristine and perfect after thousands of years. This implied that the owners of the 4 skeletons were definitely mighty figures of the conjoint body realm in the past. Conjoint body mighty figures cultivated for tens of thousands of years, and their bones were infused with their dermic powers such that they would not corrode. Snap! The skeletons were expressionless against the primordial divine turtle. A sinister glint shone in their glabella as they struck together and shattered the divine turtle instantly. The golden core phenomenon was shattered the moment it was conjured. Although the 4 skeletons had lost their dermic powers a long time ago, the power their bones contained was enough to shatter the golden core phenomenon with ease. Even a single set of skeleton was enough to kill everyone present, let alone 4. Suzimo's golden core was interconnected to the primordial divine turtle. The moment it shattered, the blow caused him to spit a mouthful of blood, as he hurriedly thought of a way to deal with things. The scarlet glint in Monkey's eyes flashed furiously, and it was ready to enter the berserk state at any moment. Little Fatty seemed to be scared stiff and was thinking about something. Everyone else had frightfully pale faces and despair in their eyes. Against the skeletons of mighty figures, their powers were as insignificant as ants. Oh my! All of a sudden, little Fatty seemed to have recalled something and exclaimed. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of fresh blood before chanting a complex incantation. With the augmentation of the incantation, that mouthful of blood hovered in midair and did not disperse. The 4 skeletons stopped their attacks as well. However, the glints in their glabellas were still flickering. The incantation was recited with increasing haste. A thin layer of sweat filled little Fatty's forehead as well. Gradually, the mouthful of blood was divided into 4 drops that floated to the heads of the 4 skeletons before descending slowly. The glint on the glabellas of the 4 skeletons were gradually extinguished. Turning back, the 4 skeletons returned to their coffins in the corners of the chamber and crawled within before closing the lid after themselves. The surrounding carrion beetle swarms retreated slowly back into the coffins as well and disappeared before long. Boom! The coffins were once more. Peace returned to the chamber. If not for the smoking carcasses of the carrion beetles on the ground, it would seem as though everything that happened earlier was an illusion. What is this? Jian was drenched in cold sweat as he panted and asked. The 4 coffins could be considered as a trump card left behind by the Tomb Master. If outsiders were to intrude upon this place, those existences would be alarmed and they would kill the outsiders. Little Fatty explained with trepidation as well. After heaving a breath, he continued, the incantation earlier was from the supreme classic of Tomb Sect, Astounding Dragon Sutra. It's something that every single legacy disciple has to memorize, but nobody knows what it is used for, nor have they ever used it. However, Master once mentioned that at a critical juncture, that incantation can be used to prove one's identity as a disciple of Tomb Sect. Normally speaking, tombs of other cultivators would not have such frightening killing techniques left behind. Naturally, there was no use for that incantation, and it was useless most of the time. However, the owner of this tomb had set down countless restrictions to ensure that his legacy is only passed down to those in Tomb Sect. With that, there was a purpose for the incantation. This time round, Jian understood as he said with lingering fear, no matter what, I'm never entering another tomb of Tomb Sect again. Suddenly, Su Zimo said, let's talk about this later, little Fatty. Hurry and locate the main tomb. Earlier on, I sensed some activity in the depths of this tomb. There are others here. You mean to say, little Fatty's eyes lit up. There was a high chance that his senior brother had only arrived slightly before him and had yet to leave. Chapter 689, Paths of Life and Death. Chapter 689, Paths of Life and Death. Under little Fatty's lead, everyone rushed into the 7th passage. After countless maneuvers and turns, a spot of light appeared at the front. That was clearly the end of the passage. Everyone was invigorated and made haste. After exiting the passage, their vision opened up and they found themselves in yet another tomb chamber. This time round, there were 8 dark passages on the other end of the chamber. It was clear that they had to make another decision. Everyone turned in unison to little Fatty. He brought out the geomantic compass and oriented it according to Tomb Sect's secret technique. When he opened it, the magnetic needle gradually stabilized and pointed towards one of the passages. Little Fatty blurted, "This way?" Before he finished speaking, he had already darted inside. They arrived at yet another chamber at the end of that passage. There were 4 passages on the opposite end. Jian was out of breath and speechless. There's really something wrong in the heads of you guys from Tomb Sect. Isn't this way too cautious? Little Fatty brought out the geomantic compass once more and received directions before long. He bolted towards the passage on the most left, and everyone followed hot on his heels. The spirit tiger shrugged his huge head and said confidently, "If I'm not wrong, at the end of this passage, there should be another chamber with 2 passages." Little Fatty nodded. "You're right. There were a total of 32 diversionary tombs outside. Earlier on, There were 16, 8 and 4 passages, so there should be 2 at the end of this passage. I'm awesome, right? The spirit tiger inched closer to Ching Ching and remarked smugly. Ching Ching pouted her lips. Indeed, when they exited from the passage, they were met with another chamber with 2 passages opposite. Above the passage on the left was a gigantic word, life. Above the passage on the right was a gigantic word, death. The paths of life and death were right in front of them. Everyone had to make a choice once again. They turned their heads in unison towards the geomantic compass in Little Fatty's hands. At that moment, the magnetic needle of the geomantic compass was in complete chaos and spun wildly. What's happening? Suzimo frowned slightly. Little Fatty had a grim expression and said in a dark tone, "The feng shui of this place is chaotic and the geomantic compass is useless here. This is the final test left behind by the Tomb Master. One of these paths must definitely lead to the true main tomb. How should we choose?" Suzimo asked. "I don't know." Little Fatty shook his head and pondered. "Hey, aren't you awesome? Choose one then." Ching Ching nudged the spirit tiger's ribs and pointed forward while whispering. The spirit tiger coughed gently. The path of life might not necessarily be life, and the path of death might not necessarily lead to death. The 2 words above were left behind by the Tomb Master to confuse the later generations. In my opinion, the path of death is the true path to life. Extreme sorrow turns to joy. Life is sought in death. Monkey thumped the spirit tiger on the shoulder. "Not bad, perverted tiger." "I know, right?" The spirit tiger raised his head. Little Fatty had a pensive expression. Given the Tomb Master's wary nature, coupled with the series of traps and formations he set previously, there was a chance that the spirit tiger's deduction was accurate. The little fox hopped out of Suzimo's embrace and spun, transforming into a young lady. She walked towards the path of life on the left and sensed her surroundings in silence. A moment later, she headed towards the path of death. The moment she approached it, her expression changed and she staggered backwards instinctively. "What's wrong?" Everyone swarmed forward and asked. When they arrived at the path of death, their expressions changed as well. Everyone smelled a strong blood stench from within. In fact, there were even howls of ghosts and wolves in the depths of the passage, as though countless living beings were struggling in misery. It was unnerving. The passage was like a gateway to hell. As for the path of life, there was a spring breeze that was filled with life. It was like paradise. It was no wonder why they were distinct paths of life and death. Ching Ching analyzed, "There's a high chance that there's an actual tomb at the end of the path of life, and that should be where the main tomb is." "That's right. We've got the same idea." The spirit tiger smirked in a pandering manner. The golden lion nodded. "We can only move in reverse. This path with the torrential blood stench may very well be the true path of life." "It can't be." Suddenly, Suzimo shook his head and rejected everyone's guesses. "The auras within the passages are so obvious and clear. Why would the Tomb Master need to go through the hassle of adding the words life and death above their respective passages?" Everyone was stunned. Suzimo was right. From that perspective, there was no need for the Tomb Master to leave those words behind. Little Fatty asked, "What do you think, boss?" Suzimo said darkly, "Those words should be instructions left behind for the later generation by the Tomb Master. The passage with life is the true path to life, and the other passage leads to an irreversible path of death." Almost everyone had overcomplicated the issue. However, nobody thought that the path of life truly led to life while the path of death truly led to death. Little Fatty slapped his thighs. "I trust in boss. Let's head down the path of life." "How about this?" Suzimo said, "I'll head down this path with Little Fatty first, and you guys can wait outside. If we don't return within an hour, there's no need." Monkey waved his arm. An additional person means an additional helping hand. Even if the end of the passage is hell, we'll be able to break out of it together. "That's right. We'll go together." The spirit tiger and everyone else stood out and shouted as well. "All right, let's do it then." Su Zimo nodded and withdrew his blood quencher from his storage bag, walking at the front with little Fatty. They were not only facing the possible dangers of the tomb, they also had to face the people who had arrived here before them. In less than 15 minutes, a light shone at the front of the tunnel. Everyone was invigorated. They knew that they had chosen the right path. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Everyone rushed towards the front at full speed. The moment they arrived at the entrance, danger flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he yelled, "Watch out!" A shadow the size of a finger swept over like a spirit snake. Blood quencher quivered and shone brightly scarlet. Su Zimo slashed in reverse towards the shadow. Su Zimo's expression changed. He did not manage to sever the shadow with that slash. Instead, the shadow coiled a couple loops around Blood Quencher before slithering towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo was decisive and abandoned Blood Quencher right away. He fell to the ground and was almost one with it, slithering away like an anaconda. Without catching sight of the attacker's appearance, Su Zimo followed the shadow before him and threw out a punch. It transformed into a gigantic seal that descended fiercely. That was a killing move from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. The person wore gray robes and did not panic nor fluster. Wielding an iron ruler, the person tapped on Su Zimo's wrist at an extremely fast speed. A puzzled look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. The gray-robed cultivator's motion looked familiar. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.